Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of By the Numbers. It is the CSGO edition. Don't let the title in the Twitch chat fool you. I'm Richard Lewis, your host, as I am every week. And with me is my hirsute friend, not bald, disappointingly so. It is Duncan Thorin Shields, leading analyst and nip hater. How are you doing?
You thought I'd be bald, did you? You thought it was going to work out for you?
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, on the one hand, no, because obviously I don't really believe in witchcraft. I don't want to break it to anyone. But on the other hand, I felt that maybe, just maybe, if all the planets aligned at once, you know, and we were about to witness some great sporting story, then yes, you know, it was within the realms of possibility, and I thought maybe having the witch, that was more of an aid really for Nip. I thought, you know, they would believe
to make them think that it was possible, like cycles.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, that makes sense actually.
Yeah, that was what I was hoping, that if they could laugh about the fact that, you know, it got to the stage where we were hiring witches for them to win tournaments. If they could sort of laugh it off, maybe it would bring their, you know, best out. But it didn't. No doubt about that.
What people actually have to realize about that, by the way, is it's not that there was no chance of it happening. Like, it definitely is not impossible that it could happen. Because first of all, I did make it reasonable. All they had to do was make the final. So they had to win the event as well. Yeah. So in theory, all that needed to happen for NIP to have done this, is, well, the easiest way to do it is if you just like got the upset win in the best of one in your group stage. You know, like if you beat TSM there, that's not ridiculous. That could happen on one map. It happens. You see best of one upsets. Say they'd done that, then you have to hope that they get sort of the easiest round of 8 draw. So, you know, we can ensure that one's out of the way. You're into the semis now. So at this point, reasonably, you only have to sort of win one best of 3. Now, the problem is, even that, like I've described the easiest possible scenario, once you get to the semis and you have to win the best of 3 there, you're going to be playing like TSM, Fnatic, VP. It's going to be pretty hard. So it just was pretty unlikely enough. And since that's the easiest scenario, all the other scenarios mean like it's almost certainly not going to happen. Like if you get into a group with a super good team, and then if you have to play some really good team in the round of 8, and then if you have to play TSM in the set, like it just was quite unlikely in that sense, you know. Yeah. I think I actually my bet was reasonable there, I think.
Yeah,
I made it sound like I'd given people a chance, but I never really did. I was just holding it out of reach, you know. If I'd said the semis, that might have been doable, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know, actually. It was kind of, and obviously we'll go into this in a little bit more detail when we sort of do the breakdown of ESL One Cologne, but there was the same old spectre over Nip. It was quite abundantly clear, like just from watching them from afar, and obviously, you know, I talked to the guys while I was there, but even just when we were sat in the crowd, it was really clear that the confidence, the self-belief, it just didn't seem to be there at all. And you could see that, you know, at various key points, you know, when they were losing 1v1s, it wasn't just the person who lost it that was kind of crestfallen. It was the entire team. You know, they really are trapped in this kind of malaise. And I've said for a while now, I think they've got other things going on behind the scenes that have really impacted on them. I just think at this juncture, it's definitely best for them to kind of just, you know, it's not going to work anymore, that lineup. And they're all good enough players in their own individual ways that they can have a good future in other teams. You know, I think about when Forest and Get Right left Fnatic, where they were like instrumental, and that lineup was absolutely, you know, one of 1.6's greatest lineups of all time, and they went to join SK Gaming, and it was like, oh, you know, it worked out for them. It was the right move at the right time, and I think a player like Get Right, for me, he's still a star player. He's still one of the best in the world. I imagine his options will be, you know, quite numerous. Forest as well, if he still wants to play.
Well, think about almost everyone in that lineup, if they really wanted to, could still play in a top 10 team. Now, listen, I don't know about Freiburg, because at the moment, some of the entry fraggers are fucking really good in CSGO now. And there's not a lot of teams, obviously, if you want to speak Swedish, you can get onto. But in terms of the other names, like people, listen, Get Right Forest, they can take care of themselves. If they ever want to play, there's people who'll always play with them. I think a good example is Allu. Allu, especially if he's willing to speak English, which he's shown, and there's teams now that maybe will be willing to do that. I was saying this at the major. If this team goes out, bearing in mind so many NIP fans have been quite shitty to Allu because he's like the new guy and they always blame him if they lose. If he can speak English and has been in all these foreign teams, if I was a fucking NA team, I'd be battering his door down. Like, come join our team, dude. Like, if you don't mind speaking English, you're fucking way better than some of our players. You're good AWPer. We'll base the team around you, you know, make you the superstar. I even think Exist, because, I mean, I'd pick him as one of the people to cut from Nip. I think he could definitely be in a good team, because he put him on a lesser team with maybe, here, listen, give him up-and-coming stars or something, or give him like LGB or something, make him the leader of that team. He could probably take a team like that and turn it around and make it much better and give him the experience and stuff. The whole point is, in those teams, all levels of these players are appropriate. Their problem is they can't be in NIP in as much as NIP is supposed to stand for best team in the world. Or worst case scenario, it has to be top 4 at least, you know. Like, you can't be like 7th best team and be NIP. That's the problem. Any other team, you can do that. You can take a time where you should have a slump. Like, I actually think in a weird way, it's so good, and you have to think this way if you're a NIP fan, it's perfect that they did so badly at this major. The worst thing that could have happened was what happened last year. Because if you remember what happened last year, they did win a miracle major, right? And what it meant was they kept the same lineup that wasn't good anymore for like 3 more months. And in those 3 months, they did nothing. They went out last place in group stages, didn't qualify for events. But what happened is the false hope of the major kept them together in that sense. This has gone so badly now that you get the sense, even from the NIP players, like, well, something's going to have to change. Something's going to have to be done. And so, if anything, this should be the thing that sparks them, if they can one day become the best team again, to get on that road, you know, to make the changes they have to.
I mean, for me, I like, there was, you know, when I'm at events, obviously, and I was in the press room this time. I haven't been in a press room for a good while. There was already rumors flying around on the final day that you know, Allu's gone. He's out the door. So I don't know if there's any credence to those, but it was weird. I didn't see him at the after party. That doesn't mean he wasn't there, but I didn't see him. And yeah, so I mean, there could be some truth in that. I mean, that's quite a strong rumor. It seems like an obvious rumor to start. I mean, if you were just making it up out of thin air, you could probably make it up and it would be a safe bet, actually. But there was a lot of people talking about it, a lot of journalists talking about it. So there seems to be something bubbling up under the surface. And just to your point about Exist, do you know what I think would benefit Exist, actually? Would be joining a team and not having to be an in-game leader.
You could do that as well, for sure.
Yeah,
if he's like here's the thing: if Exist is just like your flusher type guy, doesn't even have to be a star, just chills out, does something in the background, and then every now and then when he's on his game, has an impact. For sure, he could be in like a top 6 team.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I think. I think almost the sort of like his game's been brought down by the pressure, you know, because so many things need to go right for NIP to have a good series these days. I saw the statistic you tweeted out. What was it? They've won 1 best of 3 against the top 10 team in 3 months.
Yep.
Is that the statistic?
Yep.
So, I mean, that tells you all you need to know right there. That it's not even a case of they don't have that one. I mean, like, they've gone backwards. They have that one map potential, but they're incapable of winning a series. And that's no good if you're an elite team. That puts you down there with, you know, the Flipsides and the Luminosities and the Hellraisers of the world, not up where you want to be with the EnVyUs and the TSMs and obviously the Fnatics. So, I don't know. I feel you have to maybe lay some of the blame at his doorstep, but equally, you can only work with the tools you've got. And if you've got a very inconsistent AWPer in the form of Allu, like, you know, remember how consistent he was when he first joined? We haven't seen that for a while. Freiburg, who's struggling as an entry fragger and not really being an impact player in other areas. And you're putting so much pressure on Get Right, a star player, and you know, the veteran Forest. And, of course, on yourself, you've got to be an in-game leader and a fragger. Very hard for an in-game leader to make a working machine out of those components. So I do feel a little bit sorry for him. I think, if anything, I agree with you. I think he could probably play in a top 6, top 7 team. And not have the pressures of in-game leader and actually be a very solid fragger. You know, you're talking about Flusher. Think about the tournament he had. You know, the Mousesports Supremo. So, you know, Exist.
The problem is, though, like the topic you were saying about Allu, though, he's the one I feel the most sorry for. Yeah. Because since he's the last man in, they're this core that's played together for so long. They all have defined roles. I get the feeling that he's the guy where I have to give the most passes to if he has a bad game, in as much as I don't think he comes into that team and they're like, listen, we're going to give you the roles you want and you're going to have these spots you want. I think it's the other way around. It's like, listen, we've got a team. Do you want to join it? Right, you're doing this. So listen, we all know, think of the other star AWPers in the game. The game's built around these guys. They get put in the position to go. People are buying the AWP to give it to them so they can have a pistol instead. This doesn't happen, as far as I can see, is for Allu. And I get the sense, unfortunately as well, because of his personality wasn't like, I have to be the star on NiP. His personality was like, okay, as long as I'm on NiP and as long as we're winning, who cares? I'll do whatever these guys want. But that means when it goes badly, you're the guy most set up to get fucked, essentially. I mean, we've said this in the past about Freiburg, you know. Since they don't have very good tactics, it means when they're doing badly, Freiburg's going to look extra worse because they don't have that extra flash or the extra feint on what you're doing to cover what he's doing. You know, he's going to just be out there left on his own, you know, basically getting shot down. So I kind of feel a bit for Allu in that particular sense, whereas people like Forest, etc. That's the reason why someone like Forest is one of the ones that I always seem more critical of, because essentially, I think he has almost everything the way he'd want it to be, and he's essentially built up to succeed. So then if he doesn't succeed, I think you have to pay a higher premium in terms of criticism, you know.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And just on your point to Allu, before we move on, you know, I agree with you. Like, obviously, he joins this team. He probably does get the kind of secondary, if not tertiary, roles. And there he is. He's kind of, you know, having these. He had such a great start statistically, really made a difference. But I just think back to when they had Maikelele, and the reason, obviously, why Maikelele was removed is because they didn't like his the way he expressed himself during a game. He would be angry if shots were missed. He could be a little bit not ragey, that's the wrong word, but a little bit you know, stressful in game. You know,
hyper, I think, right?
Yeah, hyper. Yeah, exactly. Now, I look at the NIP team with Allu in, and it's almost like they're too passive. It's almost like when they lose stupid rounds, no one gets angry. And I think when you look at successful teams, people do get angry when they lose easy rounds. You think about Virtus.Pro, you think about Fnatic, you think about TSM, they've all got players that actually at times they will lose their cool and try and fire everybody up because the standard isn't high enough. And I maintained at the time, and it wasn't a popular opinion, that if they'd stuck with Maikelele, they would have been in better shape. I see nothing that makes me change my mind. And I think almost if they had someone in the team that was perhaps lighting a fire under everybody else, rather than kind of just being, hey, it's okay, guys, it's still good, and then it gets to the point of no return, and everyone's just feeling sorry for themselves, I think you've got an improved NiP. I think sometimes you need a guy on the team that's going to get pissed off when you're losing, you know?
Yeah, I think so.
And if you look at how Maikelele's been doing in Kinguin, his individual level has only risen. And, you know, he doesn't have the same caliber of player there in terms of experience.
Hey, Rich, he still finished the same place in the majors, NiP.
Yeah, exactly right, man. So, you know, I'm happy for him. Actually, I think it does vindicate him a little bit. You know, like I think he was a guy that sort of everybody was like, oh, he can't cut the mustard. They called him Whiffalele, all of that bullshit. Like it was anything to do with how he was playing. That was the problem. When in actual fact, you know, I thought at MLG Aspen, I thought he had some good series. Yeah, he had some not so good series as well. And then at Asus Winter, he was the MVP in the semis and the final for NIP. So he was heading in the right direction. I think he would have continued on that trajectory had he been allowed to do so. But anyway, let's go into the results overall. I saw there was a thread actually praising you, Thorin, on Reddit. And I must apologize while I put my glasses on. These were a different pair, so there'll be loads of monitor glare for everyone at home. So I'll take these off. But there was a thread saying Thorin predicted this and it came true. Thorin predicted that and it came true. And even to your map picks, you were pretty much on point. How do you feel? Do you feel validated as an analyst now, Duncan?
I mean, it's nice when people notice. Unfortunately, people did the classic thing, this is one of the reasons why if you're ever going to be in the prediction business, okay, don't ever think that when you're right, you win. You don't. What happens is there's two ways it goes. If you're wrong, you're not just wrong, you're an idiot who knows nothing about the game and maybe even has never watched the game. Yeah. If you're right, then what happens is no one ever goes, oh, wow, you were right. I was wrong. I personally said, you know, this. That person never exists. He goes and hibernates under a rock for 7 years. What happens is every person who claims they made the same prediction is like, well, I knew that anyway. In fact, everyone knows that. That's just obvious. And they wait until after the fact and just say it like that, you know. Meanwhile, I gave you that stat last time. And it was actually on my podcast, Counterpoints. I gave that stat that, like, I had some, like, ludicrous record of predicting the winner of a final, you know. And I told you, basically, most
14 out of 17, was it?
14 out of 18, yeah. And, like, and so anyway, you'd think, like, with a stat like that, someone would at least have to be like, well, you know what you're talking about. No, most people would just like, well, you probably just picked the favorite every time. It's like, well, if you look in the past, if you look retroactively now, it's easy to say because they won. Like, at the time, guess what? I had pro players on the desks with me telling me other shit. Like, the other team was going to win, and no, this team will win on this map. It's not at all obvious. One of the big problems in this particular case, though, is when we're talking, that was mainly just about map picks, where I was trying to predict which maps they would pick, etc. People made out as though, oh, well, it was obvious for those teams. Actually, it wasn't. Okay, there's a couple where it was obvious in the tournament, but actually, if you since I did like a video on the topic, basically, which is where people's getting this information, one of the key things about the video wasn't just to say, oh, Virtus.Pro bans Dust 2 all the time, therefore they will ban Dust 2. That wasn't like the end of the video. The whole point of the video was, okay, this team bans a map like this, but against this particular opponent, that team's not so weak on it. So will they choose to go with that gambit? Do they go the other way and try and ban out a strong map from that team? And I explained the whole philosophy here. And actually with certain newer teams like EnVyUs, like Fnatic, etc. Well, Fnatic aren't newer, but Fnatic have a really deep map pool. With some of these teams, you actually can't 100% guess the map they're going to do. It doesn't matter how many games you've watched. Because there's a lot of gamesmanship in what they do at that point in time. They want to get a little edge up in the pick ban. Or sometimes, like in the case that you've seen with people like Happy, and I've mentioned Exist, sometimes their way of map picking is they sometimes purposely pick a map that they know the opponent thought they were going to ban to try and fuck with the opponent, to make them think, wow, well, they must have something going on. You know, they do stuff that's counterintuitive. So I don't think it's as easy as some people thought there. But it's nice that some people recognized it anyway, because as a general trend, it just shows that if you have the analytical tools going correctly, you should in general be heading towards the right things here, or your reasoning should at least make sense, even if they don't pick the map, you know.
Yeah, and I've said it before. I've had players when, you know, people say, oh, Richard, you're not an analyst. You can't analyze the game. You've never played the game at a high level. You don't know what you're talking, you know, all the usual shit you've heard, right? And I've had players talk absolute shit. Like, just players that I like and respect, or former players, and they just talked absolute garbage. And you're like, there's never a call-out thread for them, like, ever.
I'm not exaggerating, Rich. I'm not going to say who they are, because it's been years and years, and I've had so many people on desks, you'll never guess who these people are anyway.
Yeah.
But beloved players who would even be cited in threads of, like, who's a really intelligent player who could do great casting, who've said to me stuff on analyst desks, like after a segment or before a segment, they'll ask me something like, what about this team here? And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, like, how do they play? Like, what maps do they like? And then I tell them like a few different details, and they literally just repeat that when the segment comes on. And then the fucking fan guy's like, well, he knows what he's talking about. And then some of them, like after the segment, would even be like, yeah, I could only make that point, actually, because I haven't really watched them. Like, I'm not sure. Like, it's taken for granted that players know this stuff. They don't. Most players only know it from their world as well. Like, they know when they play that team, they do well as well.
I've had one in the not-too-distant past, right? Ask me, they've said, oh, I haven't watched it for a while. Is this map still a T-sided map? And then you're like, well, actually, it's a bit more balanced these days, and plus the meta shifted. And then they say all of this stuff. They go, well, of course the meta shifted, and this used to be a T-side. And you're like, even I've told you that. And then it comes to you. It comes to you, and they've used your point, and you're like, yeah, I couldn't agree more with what he says. And Richard Lewis, fat idiot. So that's what you get, like. So how do you fucking win? You can't even win the game. It's bullshit. Anyway, fuck all that noise. Let's one of the things that I did want to go over with you was there were some elements of our predictions, and mainly your predictions, because obviously I didn't commit to a prediction on the last podcast, apart from saying EnVyUs would win it, which obviously I was wrong. Although I did get the finalists right.
It's a pretty good prediction.
Yeah, I mean,
they could have won that final, mate.
Yeah, I was really confident they were going to do it. Like, I was super confident, but we'll get to that. It was mainly to talk about some of the lesser teams, because one of the teams that you said, I mean, in quote, they may as well not even bother turning up, was Flipside, and it definitely looked that way. The tournament opened up with an absolute mauling. They got 16-3'd on Inferno by EnVyUs, which was feeding into my idea and definitely feeding into yours. But then, of course, Flipside went on to beat Mousesports. And, of course, they were the team that sent Mousesports packing. They were super disappointed. I mean, God B was inconsolable. I don't know if you saw his Facebook post.
But it was really sad. Yeah, he's like apologizing and saying it's his fault.
Yeah. I mean, I grabbed him on the next day and like fucking. We had a long talk about it all, like just telling him not to be so despondent because, look, it's a major. Mousesports should have done better, sure, but the format wasn't exactly conducive to how Mousesports play. But anyway, I won't labour that point. We'll talk about Flipside. So the 16-14 Mousesports on Cobblestone. They had an amazing Cobblestone match against Luminosity, where it looked like Flipside were going to win it, and Luminosity had to dig super deep. So I just wanted to ask if you'd revised your opinion about Flipside. Do you consider this to be a team that, even with the absence of Simple, could actually now go on to do some serious damage on the international scene, or certainly improve their standing?
Unfortunately, no, which is going to sound like, well, how can you say that? Like, he just told you all the stats, like the teams they beat and how well they did. Here's the thing. Yeah, they did do way better than I thought, and they did play well. Like, actually, the player who was the most standout for me was, now that Simple's gone, and so there's this sort of vacuum that someone has to step into and frag, it's actually been Bondic, believe it or not. He's the guy where he's usually the guy you're not really looking at, and you're not really talking about, and he's one of the left-out guys from the end of the 1.6 series who never was like a star, but who's just in decent teams. He's the guy who's been doing really well. Problem is, part of the reason, and you set it up in your own context there, you didn't say, like, Flipside were just fucking wrecking everyone and they were in insane form. The first thing you started with was, like, sort of like, wow, they beat Mousesports, as in, Mousesports didn't play very well, and I think no one can debate that. Like, one of the interesting factors for Mousesports is Nex, their superstar player who's been playing fucking lights out all these tournaments, didn't even show up to this major. And in fact, I noticed, because he's played at a few majors, people were like linking to stats where like his stats at majors drop off like drastically. So I don't know if there's some sort of issue there. Admittedly, he was not in great teams in the past, but his stats really dropped off when he's at majors. So first of all, you have to say that they benefited from the fact Mousesports shot a shit the bed a bit and didn't do very well. Beyond that, yeah, Flipside did play really well. They did play, but even so, it's not like they got out of the group, So it was good, and there's some signs there. And I do think, like, listen, Blade can definitely call tactics well. He's good in that sense, underrated. World Edit's a good player. If Bondic can frag well, okay, they can be okay. Their problem is, for me, they're not going to be a top 10 team still. They're just going to hang around that bit just below the top. Sort of the 11th to 15th area, there's a bunch of teams there who just event by event, they're going to sort of leapfrog each other, then go back down. The problem is I can't see them being good enough to actually be like a legit team beyond that. Like, I don't think it's going to happen for them, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say as well, I was a little bit unimpressed with World Edit, actually, at this tournament. What was really interesting was it was like Blade and, I'm just looking at the stats now, it was like Blade and Markelov, really, that were putting the numbers up, which you wouldn't necessarily expect. But I thought collectively they looked really decent. Yeah, they caught Mousesports with their trousers down a little bit, and Nex was. I mean, everyone malfunctioned really on Mousesports. I don't think you can really single Nex out, but you're probably right to in a way, given that he is a godlike player and has been playing amazingly at the moment. But I was impressed with Flipside. I honestly thought they were going to beat Luminosity at one point in that series, and in the end, I think it was on the second overtime, Luminosity were, just managed to get that run on Cobblestone where they got too many rounds for Flipside to claw it back. But conceivably, Flipside could have been, in the best of threes, which would have been unthinkable at the start of the tournament. So, I'm very keen to give them mad props. I was also really impressed with Luminosity, like really impressed. They beat Kinguin, which, like you say, they finished in the same spot that NIP did, so that's a serious result. They lost to EnVyUs in overtime.
Yep.
Right, and EnVyUs made it all the way to the final. They showed they had the testicular fortitude, shall we say, to come over a double overtime against Flipside, and obviously in the series against Fnatic, yeah, it was 2-0. Doesn't really tell the full story though. Because the second map was 16-14. So, they were really close to winning that. Now, the changes they made, actually, which was to drop, I think it was Zach, and bring in Cold Zero to replace him. But this predicated a change. So, Fallen, the 1.6 veteran, he started AWPing again. And he was absolutely sick this tournament. Yep. I mean, it made such a difference to their team. Kind of makes you wonder why they hadn't done that sooner. Like, make Zach just rifle, because Fallen was one of the, like, he was like the next Kogu. You know, that was how he was billed when he came through in 1.6. And he played Source. He was sick in Source, you know, for a few tournaments. He's a player that I've interviewed in the past, a player I've always respected. And, you know, I thought maybe he dropped the AWP because CSGO was so different, he couldn't get to grips with it. But that clearly wasn't the case. I mean, there was just so many good performers individually on that Luminosity team. I was a little bit sad that they didn't at least get a third map out of Fnatic.
No, that's what's weird, is that, like you're mentioning there, Fallen was so good in 1.6, and in many ways in 1.6, he was one of those guys who was sort of stuck in like a simple position where he's like way better than everyone else. He has to do everything, and they still might lose the game. So in CSGO, the way it was more characterized was more like, okay, he's the tactician now all of a sudden. He's not doing the main AWP role, and he's not trying to be the star. And hey, maybe he can't even be the star. In fact, that's what a lot of us thought, because you looked at it and you were like, okay, maybe he's just not as good now. Maybe CSGO doesn't suit him. But okay, he applies his brain elsewhere. And if you look at that team, the famous thing about that team was the one good player was Fur. And he was really good, and then everyone else was sort of like bad. And as a result, the fact that the rest were bad is what made you give them so much props, because you were like, they have one good player, but they obviously have good tactics, and they have certain maps that they have specialists on. And as a result, it makes you want to give someone more props when you know they don't just have mad firepower, but they can get wins over better teams. That means they're using their brain, and they're using tactics and team play and all the best qualities of CS. So I think Luminosity definitely has all that. But that was the interesting fact, is suddenly, if Fallen's going to have anything close to that kind of performance, now they're actually not matching up that badly in terms of firepower. I mean, when you get into like a round of 8, there's not any team they're going to play who's going to be less skilled than them. You're always going to have good players, so they're always going to have that problem. But it just always looks good for Luminosity. That team is consistently, to me, they're not a fluke team, because they actually consistently get upsets. I mean, they almost got an upset again on Fnatic here. They almost got that map. So they would have had like a map at every big tournament I can think of that they've played at, where they've beaten a much better team. So that's not even a fluke at that point in time.
Yeah, you know, like you say, they've got the tactical aspect there. Now they're starting to add aim. They got a really sick AWPer. You know, I'm looking forward to this next season of ESL, ESEA, because, you know, they were right up there, you know, come the end of the regular season. Obviously, CLG's made some advancements. We'll talk a little bit about them now. But I honestly think that they could push Cloud9 now, conceivably, in that region. And if Renegades get their sort of backdoor entrance, all of a sudden that North American side of the Pro League actually becomes interesting to watch, rather than it just being 2-3 teams and then everyone else being terrible, you know? So I'm definitely going to keep an eye on Luminosity. They really, really impressed me, this event. We'll talk about CLG then, just quickly. I mean, kind of went the way we thought it was going to. I had a few palpitations for my Blondie prediction very early on with a 16-13 against NIP. NIP didn't look great in that opening map, but CLG, while they did better than I expected, they still made a few sort of textbook errors that really allowed NIP to sort of get over the finish line. Then they got 16-14 against eBettle, which, considering people think CLG are the, you know, second best team in NA now, that was a surprise. And then they managed to take 14 rounds off Na'Vi in that sort of last game on Cobblestone and push Na'Vi all the way. So actually, on a whole, I thought CLG were like, you could still see they were inconsistent. You could still see that they had problems, but they looked hugely improved on what we'd seen from them in the past. And in particular, the addition of JDM64 has really proven to be a boon. He was on fire this entire tournament.
I mean, event on event that they've had him now, he has been improving. You got to give him props. He looked very raw when they first brought him in the team, and he had some really bad stats early on in terms of he'd get the AWP kills, but he was like the prototypical AWPer who can't rifle. Like, I think at Sivo, someone had an insane stat that he had like 1 Colt kill over the whole tournament or something utterly bonkers like that. So he had his issues early on, because that's going to be too expensive to try and manage, you know. But it's improved. The problem for CLG is they can play a lot of teams close, but the fact that they can also then go and almost lose to eBettle is like, yeah, you've got some issues there, mate. Like, it's great to be coming close with Na'Vi and Nip, but eBettle should be a team that shouldn't even be a close match, especially because it was on Mirage, which eBettle is only really known as, like, they're supposed to be a team that's good on train, so everyone's banning train against them. Maybe they're good on overpass, we're not even sure. No one knows anything about eBettle on Mirage, and eBettle didn't show us anything in this tournament. So that's the one that concerns me a bit. And also the fact that they didn't get the upsets. They came close, but they didn't actually get an upset. They didn't get an upset of a NIP, didn't get an upset of an RV. So it's like a close but no cigar scenario. Okay, yeah, well done, sort of, I guess, but you didn't actually do anything.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, like, this is one of the few teams that, they had these close games, but I actually don't think they would have benefited from best of three. I mean, CLG are that, like, team that has that one map upset potential, but historically they don't do well in series. So I don't even really think you can blame the format for their kind of failings. They did about, they did about as well as I expected, and that was for them to play with pride, be competitive, but ultimately lose to the better teams.
No, I mean, listen, let's get real. Best of one's good for that sort of team. Here's the thing. Any NA fan who's like, best of one's bullshit. By the way, I agree best of one's bullshit. But best of one's bullshit when you're Cloud9 and you lose a close game. When you're CLG, what, you think if they'd beaten Na'Vi on that one map and two more maps are coming up, they're just like, no problem, get one of the next two as well. Like, no, they want best of one. That's ideal for them.
Yeah. I mean, I won't bother mentioning Immunity. Obviously, they kind of crashed out as well. eBettle got beasted by Fnatic 16-2, so not really a lot to talk about there. Both of those teams kind of had the tournaments that we expected them to have. I think we were sort of saying it was a toss-up.
They were lucky to be there.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was a toss-up, wasn't it, between those two to say which was the weakest in attendance. So, that kind of went the way I expected. So now let's start getting into the real, meat of the tournament. I think we should really focus a bit more on the Mousesports issue. I know we've touched on it briefly. Now, I had them tipped to beat Cloud9, not because I believe they're a better team than Cloud9 man for man, but simply because I believe tactically it was such a good matchup. It was a game they could win. That they've already proven they're capable of beating them in the past. And when the map ended up being overpass, well, I thought, okay, this is actually good for Mousesports. This can be something that really plays to their strengths. They were actually, I mean, 16-10, maybe that looks close, but actually Cloud9, it was close at one point, and then Cloud9 kind of ran away with it a little bit. So I was kind of a little bit like, all right, early nerves. But then the cobblestone game that they had against Flipside was just absolutely disastrous. Don't get me wrong, credit to Flipside, but there was just nothing really. That is a game that, again, I believe if optimal Mousesports played optimal Flipside, Mousesports would win that 95 times out of 100. It would be that. It should be that decisive, but it just wasn't. And Spiddy, again, I thought suffered. He's kind of the unknown quantity in the team for me, that he's the guy who can step up, and when he does, makes such a huge difference to Mousesports, but actually he's not doing it as much as you would want him to. Now, I thought Dennis and Chris J were about average to middling, like where you'd expect them to be. Nex was just average, which by his standards was really poor. So I don't know what went wrong. Was this like maybe a case of they put so much importance on it because they'd all been talking in interviews about, we're the home team, home soil, we want to win the major. All of the previous 3 months has all been about this major. Did they just create this unattainable goal in their minds and they mentally defeated themselves?
I think they choked, basically. I think the pressure got to them. The idea that they had, it's not been long that they've even had real expectations. None of us expected anything the last few events. Even when they'd have a good event, you were sort of like, let's wait and see, one event's not enough, can they repeat that? But obviously all these events in the past, they've always shown good form. They've consistently been having good performances. And the key thing about them was, I thought of them as a team where they're a great sort of a watermark team. Everyone below them, they'll beat. And everyone above them, they'll give a game to and they'll have a chance but probably lose to. They're one of those, they make sense as a team. The problem here is it didn't make sense, the teams they lost to. So Cloud9 one's not as bad. Cloud9 is a better team, even though I think Mousesports still had the better matchup there, but they lost that. Fair enough. Yeah, it's the Flipside one now. What was it? Yeah, the Flipside one was the one where it's like they should have beaten them. That should have been like an obvious win. And in fact, their redraw was the dream redraw.
Yeah.
To take Luminosity and Flipside. Like the Luminosity, remember, is the team that in theory is the one waiting in the final match. That's the easiest in theory of all the people waiting in that match that you can get in those redraws. So that should have been the one where if Mouse comes at all in form, they're getting out of that group. So, yeah, I think it was just pressure. I think it just got to them. I think next event, they'll be fine again. It won't be an issue. I just hope it's not like an ongoing thing. I hope it's like this is our first major together. We just blew this one, but we'll figure it out next time because you never can tell with those teams like who's going to buckle under the pressure in that particular sense. I mean, obviously fucking Cloud9 did, so it's hard to tell, right? Even from recent form.
Yeah, I mean, it was horrifying for me. You know, I had them down on my pick'em. I had them down in my predictions. And like you say, you get that dream redraw where you're up against teams that you should be capable of beating in a best of one. And yeah, just to like say, yeah, it is a choke actually. And it's a real shame. I know it's hit the team hard. Now it's all a case of how they bounce back. I hope they don't do anything knee jerk. You know, Gobby seemed to be a bit more positive towards the end of the competition. You know, when we saw him, he was a bit more philosophical rather than despondent. I don't think they'll make any knee-jerk lineup changes. They've got they've now got sort of an idea of where they're failing. If they can fix it, they can still be a very good team. But yeah, this was a hugely disappointing outing for them, and I hope it's not one of those disappointments that kind of defines them. You know. It can happen sometimes in sport. Now, moving on to Kinguin. Kinguin were a team that I really wasn't sure of about what was going to happen. I had them down to beat Luminosity in the opening game. That didn't happen. They were crushed. And I was like, oh dear, this could be really bad. Then they had a close game against Immunity, you know, 16-13. And I was like, yeah, this is really, really bad. Cloud9 are going to wreck them. And then the Cloud9 versus Kinguin game happens. And although we'll probably talk about Cloud9 in a little bit, we'll have to mention that, okay, statistically, Kinguin were doing very well. It was Dust 2. I mean, it was really unfortunate, actually. So the first thing, Kinguin remove Overpass and Cloud9 remove Mirage. Now, Cloud9 have removed Mirage there because they know, actually, they're going to struggle on Mirage. Like they beat Fnatic on it, but they
don't play that much, man.
Yeah, exactly. They prepared specifically to beat Fnatic on Mirage, and then when they got to the final of DreamHack Valencia, they got absolutely battered by TSM on Mirage. So obviously, Sean's thinking there is let's remove the map we're weak on. So they take out Inferno, they take out Mirage, Kinguin take out Overpass, take out Cobblestone, and out of the maps that are left, Dust 2 comes up, which is just horrifying for Cloud9 because that's, you know, if I was Sean, and I'm not obviously, and you can probably tell me why this is wrong, I probably would have removed Dust 2. That's like their favorite toy. I would have taken that away from them probably.
The problem is, I think this is an example. I've made this point many times before. One of the reasons why teams like TSM and Fnatic are so consistently unbeatable for some of the lesser teams isn't just that they're better teams and they have more maps they're good on. It's that when they're good on more maps, they use the map pool against the lesser team. So what they'll do is teams like TSM and Fnatic sometimes will go like, okay, this is our like second best map. We're pretty good on this map. Is it your best map and one of the only maps you're good on? Well, you're not even going to get to play it then. We'll play something that we're not as good on, but you're terrible on. Then we're like 90% to win, you know. Whereas let's say on Dust 2, because C9, that's one of their best maps. Let's say on Dust 2, they're like a solid favorite, like 60%, 65%. Difference is, if instead, what were the maps that you said were left?
So the maps that were left, let me work it out. So, right, I've got the veto in front of me here. So, Cloud9 remove Inferno, Kinguin remove Overpass, Cloud9 remove Mirage, and Kinguin remove Cobblestone. So that would leave...
Train,
Dust 2.
Cash, maybe?
Cash, yeah. Okay,
now here's the thing. Dust 2 and Cash, two of the best maps for C9, that's fine. Train... really good map for C9 as well. So if Train comes out, okay, problem solved. They don't have an issue here anyway, okay? They probably just win that very easily. But the point is, okay, Dust 2 and Cash, either of them they're fine on, so pick one. If I were them, I'm not wasting that Mirage ban there. I'd rather play Kinguin 1 and Mirage than play them on Dust 2.
Yeah,
Let's take an ultimate upset map. They're good on it. You're good on it. Yeah, you're really good on it. I think Sinan's really good on Dust too, but why play with fire there, you know?
The thing is, Duncan, what makes it an even crazier decision not to ban it is Kinguin had just played Immunity on Dust too. So they were even warmed up on that map, you know, when Cloud9 weren't. And sure, I mean, okay, it was 16-13, so maybe Sean was thinking, actually, if Immunity can get 13 rounds, if Dust 2 comes up, we should be okay, but I don't know. I personally would have removed it. I think sometimes you've got to take away... It's okay banning out your weaknesses, but I think sometimes you've got to ban out your opponent's strengths. I think sometimes that's the wiser policy, you know, if not most of the time. So that definitely played into this victory. And then, of course, it's got to be said as well, I think this is the game, if I remember rightly, I'm sure chat will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the game where when it was like poised like 13-12 or something, Sean Gares called a rotate, because Maikelele pushed long with an AWP. Yeah, so Maikelele pushed long with an AWP, and he was alone. And it was like a fake. And because obviously you typically wouldn't send an AWP along by himself. It's a really risky play. So obviously Sean saw that, called, right, they're going to be coming along. Everyone pushes out a B. They leave mid. And from that point onwards, Kinguin were able to get the push into B, get the bomb down. And that was the pivotal moment in the game when it was so close. So I almost think as well, like, had that... Cause if they weren't so edgy, because the game was a lot closer than they'd anticipated, I don't think Sean makes that call to over-rotate. And I think this maybe could have gone to overtime. Maybe Cloud9 can nick it. But there was just... It was almost like Cloud9 made mistakes to really let Kinguin through. That was kind of my assessment of the game, watching it live.
The problem is for Cloud9, it's like, here's why people think we're hating on Cloud9 in the past. Yeah. Because Cloud9's having these sick runs. They're having runs where they're beating EnVyUs. Well, they beat EnVyUs a couple of times. They beat Fnatic in a best-of-3. They're getting maps off top teams. They're taking everyone close. They're going to finals every time. They're coming close to winning in finals. And so every Cloud9 and NA fan, here's their response. Oh, this is literally the worst that's ever going to happen. And if anything, they were unlucky and they should be winning all these events. So in the future, they're only going to be better. And if you say anything else, you're a fucking hater. No. What happened there was that was their ceiling. That's the best you can expect. And when things go really well, they're a fucking awesome team. They're one of the best teams in the world. Top 5, top 6. I don't think it's disputable they're around that realm. But they've also got a C game. And if they turn up with that C game, they can lose to other teams. It can be close. They can get beaten by teams like Virtus.Pro, by Mousesports, sometimes convincingly. And if their strengths aren't all there fully, they can definitely suddenly look quite mortal. And we've seen this over the past couple of tournaments where they've had these issues. Like, one of the things that I'm stressed whenever I was giving them props for how well they'd done, you notice, was I didn't just do like the stats thing. I didn't just go, oh, what happens is Shroud and Skadoodle just carry them. And whenever those guys are dropping 50 in a game, like combined, you know, you're going to win games because they're amazing. I always said, like, yeah, Shroud's fragging well, Skadoodle's really consistent. But I always made the point that what's allowing them to do this is like Sean Gares is reading the game really well. He's keyed into the opponents. He's doing his research, etc. Well, that in itself, when that strength isn't going, is going to be a big problem for you, because that's covering certain weaknesses you've got. That's putting people in better situations. So when he's fucking that up, when he's off his game, when he doesn't have the info, or maybe he just reads the game poorly, then the performance can be drastically worse. And so I think this was almost the worst I could have expected from Cloud9, but I definitely knew this was a possibility. I mean, like, this was within the realm of what could happen. And obviously Kinguin played very well as well. You have to add that into the equation. They still could have gotten through the round of 8 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that was kind of like a pivotal moment, and maybe it artificially inflated Kinguin's finish. But again, credit where credit's due. I don't want to take anything away from Kinguin. As you say, Cloud9 are a good team. I just feel that it was one of those things that Kinguin couldn't have beat Cloud9 if Cloud9 hadn't have made some errors. And the errors basically came at key moments. So before the game even starts, to be playing them on Dust 2, that's disastrous. That call changes the game. And the thing is, I think it happened at about 13-12 in the match. So you haven't even got time mentally to bounce back. You know, if you're the leader and you know you've made that call and it's fucked things up, and the team are like starting to lose a bit of confidence, you haven't got a couple of rounds to win to bring them back. You know, it's like a gut punch. You know, it just sucks all the wind out of you. You got nothing left in the tank after that point. And you know, Kinguin got across the finish line. And then, of course, they came up against TSM, and that was a comprehensive defeat. I mean, TSM absolutely battered them. And look, I'm going to take no joy in this. Although one of our good Portuguese friends, again on my YouTube channel, there was a YouTube comment I woke up to yesterday. Why didn't you interview Fox, you fat idiot? Why indeed? And Fox had a pretty poor series against TSM, which I think underlined some of the criticism he'd been getting. He'd been average to middling. He'd been playing his part up until this point. But against TSM, he was hopelessly outclassed. I think one map, wasn't it something like 3 for 18 or something he had? I think on just 2.
He had some absolutely dire performance, yeah.
So,
I mean, by the way, they were never going to do well against TSM. Like, of all the draws they could get for the round of 8, I feel bad for them in that sense.
Yeah.
There's some where at least there could be some play. Like, hey, they get VP. There could be some play there. They could maybe go close on a map. There's maybe maps VP wants to stay away from. Even the new EnVyUs team, because it's a brand new team. Hey, you've got a chance to at least play here. But if you were going against TSM was always going to absolutely mop the floor of them. So I don't even blame them for that.
I mean, the thing is, though, like, it just couldn't have come at a worse time, though, for him to have a personally bad level of performance. Obviously, there's lots of speculation about if Kinguin... Right, okay, first of all, there's lots of speculation as to whether this team is going to even be part of the Kinguin organization or the Kinguin brand moving forward. That's all rife. Everyone's saying, oh, but they made a lot of money off the stickers. The money Kinguin was spending, when you're signing, $1 million deals to sponsor teams annually... the money you're going to get from stickers isn't going to cover that. And if you've done that a bunch of times, you got problems.
Well, there are also concerns, like, aside from CS, that Kinguin are, like, pulling out of certain ventures they're in, and so maybe they're slashing some things, or they're trying to move their money into different areas,
Yeah, basically my sources have all told me that internally Kinguin have scaled down their esports department. They've moved the experienced business heads that were in the esports department into other areas of the business. They put a UK former Hearthstone manager in charge of their esports division, a chap I know called Adam. And he's basically running their entire esports output now. And the word internally is that esports department's been told, now's the time we have to turn a profit or we're just going to shut this down. So... this is why I don't know why people are doubting that the Kinguin team is up for sale. Keep in mind that the buyout on Rain was 40,000. Therefore, his buyout is going to be bigger, probably 3 times that. I've heard each player individually is in the region of $120,000 to $150,000 buyout individually. So if a big organization wanted to come in and pick this team up, or even just 1 or 2 players, like Kinguin are going to be quids in. They're going to make money off that. But
that is ridiculous, those figures.
Yeah, but CS is heading that way. I've seen some contracts where this is becoming the standard buyout. There's teams that are in the lower end of your top 10 and not even in your top 10 that have 6-figure buyouts for players now, if you can even imagine that. So we're getting there. But anyway, the issue I think here is that this team individually, and I've said it before, and it's a shame that it has to be Fox. It's going to be the name that pops into everyone's head. I think they're 1 player short of actually being a very solid, comfortable top 10 team, maybe even a top 6 team. I think they can get that high. It's just they just need 1 more player, and you could say...
So here you go, Rich. Take Exist, just make him just a fragger on that team, put him in, bing, there you go. Team that can make top 4s, team that can have 6 runs, who knows? I don't think it's unreasonable.
No, I don't either. And the bonus we've got there is, of course, everyone speaks English, right? So that's how they're communicating at the moment. So, I don't know, dude. I think I think Kinguin they can move forward, but I think they're going to have to make a tough choice if they want to do that. But I thought it would probably be an over-exaggeration to say they impressed me at this event, but I think they played better than I thought they were going to, especially after that opening game. Against Luminosity. Okay, so...
by the way, for people who are Kinguin fans, get your fucking knickers untwisted. When you go like, yeah, but Maikelele said that Fox is his friend. Yeah, remember when on camera, people from fucking Kinguin were like, we wouldn't pick up Dennis, awkwardly looking around. Then they've dropped Wheaton, picked up Dennis. That's how fucking esports is, mate. That doesn't mean they're lying. In that moment, they do like this guy. I mean, he's still in the fucking room for a start off. It's not like they're going to replace him instantly anyway. They're not going to have to think about that moment anyway. But everyone who's logical anyway, eventually does look at the business angle and go, well, is this a better chance if I take this guy? You know, can I do this instead? So eventually that's going to happen. You just have to be reasonable on that. Oh, did the call die? Ah, just Richard, okay. Am I still on live? Ah, hello. Good job I didn't say anything there. Everyone on stream. Love all the countries east of man. Actually, I'm in Korea, so technically it's a trick. Even America's east of me, mate. Everything's east of me. Are we just going to stay alive on air until he comes back? Put up a card or something.
Right, so, sorry about that. I think the Whitten fans got me. No, just a Skype crash. Nothing to do. No DDoS. Nothing miserable and sinister there going on.
Just
anyway,
to make my own point, like since you'd said like we're a package for majors and stuff, I was actually going to have you drop from the call mid-call and have Raheem brought in for my new podcast called Bababam Rocket Launcherinos.
Mate, if you ever work with Raheem, that package deal is fucking
over,
so
right?
yeah, mate. The bro team is dead. Like, but anyway, so no, you're right. You're right. Like the whole issue about players. Like, look, people need to fucking realize this moving forward. Obviously, when you have a playing relationship, you're mates. You know, it's like. You don't even need to be best friends or anything. You know, there has to be some camaraderie there. You know, you're all young lads together. You're all going out to events. You're all traveling the world. You're playing tournaments. You know, you're getting groupies. You're drinking beer. You live in this kind of, low rent rock and roll lifestyle equivalent. Obviously, you're going to bond with people that you're doing that with. But as soon as the question of, do you think he's holding us back a little bit, maybe, comes up, all of a sudden, private conversations are going to be held. And there's been very few teams in the history of esports, let alone Counterstrike, that have been like, look, we know this guy's shit. We know this guy's holding us back. We know it's effectively going to cap our earnings, but we don't care. We don't care about that. We just want to have a good time, the five of us, traveling the world, sleeping with beautiful women, drinking booze, definitely not doing drugs because that's forbidden, and just having a good time. And those teams that do that, that's awesome for them. But most teams will, when asked, and a lot of the time, actually, I've got to say as well, it's not even the team. Like, they might be like, yeah, fuck it, we're all right, we're losing. That's fine. Management are like, look, if you guys keep losing, we ain't sending you to no more events. We're not paying to lose. We've got a brand reputation to maintain. So maybe you need to think about who you're going to replace that shit player with. And then you're under pressure because now your job's on the line because of some other guy you're mates with. And, so it can be really difficult. Like, I think players, honestly, they look at it from their perspective. Like, if I was with my friends, this is what I would do. So, yeah.
Just a bit naive.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially because the same fan, let's be real, it's not like there's a bunch of different fans, okay, Rich? There's fans that criticize players, and then there's fans that are just fans of their team. No, they're all the same person. What happens is the fan who's a Kinguin fan, and it's like, how dare you say Fox should be removed? You are fucking scum. Then 1 second later opens his next browser tab and puts in like, bot Allu, fucking kick him from this shit. Like, yeah, it's weird how that works, isn't it? Perspective. Like, let's get real, guys. So just calm down. You're allowed to suggest that players could be removed from teams.
And this is the thing as well. Don't underestimate the fact that, look, you can be friends with people that you can't play with for professional reasons. That would be like saying, like, you're both working in call centers. Like, one works for Orange, the other works for T-Mobile. You used to work together, but he moved to T-Mobile now. No, I cannot talk to him anymore. He has betrayed the brand. Like, no one does that in real life, do they? You just fucking get on with it. I'll meet you for a beer. When does your shift finish? Yeah. All right, cool. That's it. That's just how you do it. So, yeah, this whole bros for life reminds me of fucking CLG And Froggen would never leave those players that are holding him back. Of course he fucking would. Of course he would. Your pro career only lasts till you're about 24 in League. You've only got like 3 years to win things. It's fucking retarded. Anyway, so back to ESL One Cologne. Other team worth talking about is obviously going to be Na'Vi. What did you... I won't even set this one up, right? Because I'm conscious of time. Lots to fit in. But they did have kind of a bit of a weird tournament for me, where they weren't up to their usual standards. You know, very close series against Titan, close game against Titan, close game against CLG, and then just sort of, you know, well, not blown away by EnVyUs, but EnVyUs clearly looked the better team. So what do you think's kind of gone wrong with Na'Vi, or if anything? Because I know you rated them really high in your most recent top 10 rankings.
So Na'Vi's the same story as Cloud9. What we saw was they had this couple of events in a row where they were on this sick heater, and the only way you were going to beat them, much like Cloud9, is if you were just like Fnatic, TSM, or some god tier team playing insane CS. So that was their top point. And when that happened, everything was going right. Guardian was monstering, Flamey was there, game after game, impact games. Everything in the team was working awesome. Now, when a couple of these factors go wrong, now they're not ever going to be a bad team, by the way. They'll always be a legit team. They'll always do well. But this tournament, they just turned up. They were all right. They had some maps that they had occasional spikes that they were decent in, but they never were close to that sick, super sick form team. And really, you've seen when they had lost Sivo, you saw this one here, their like average game is a lot lower than their peak game. You know, they're not consistently turning up at that level. So I don't think this is the end of the world. I think it's disappointing that at a major, this was the one time they really could have had a chance to go to a final or something. You know, this should have been legit. Yeah. So it's definitely a disappointment to only make the round of 8. You did get, in theory, as it turned out at the end of the tournament, one of the harder round of 8 draws. I have to say that. Like if you're coming out second and you play Fnatic or VP, those are much more winnable ones. You can win a map there. You can take that close. Those teams, at least there was a chance. Unfortunately, EnVyUs was pretty much a killer. Like anyone who faced them was going to have a massive, massive problem. But yeah, I do feel like Na'Vi underperformed a bit here, or that maybe you think of the fact that Flamey was the X factor that made them an elite team. Maybe he just is the inconsistent player, and when he's just okay, they're back to being the Guardian show. Edward's going to do some stuff here and there, but they're not going to be like world beaters. Okay, so maybe if it goes like this, they end up settling back around a 4 or 5 type team in the world, and that's good, and they have good performances. But at the moment, they still have to show me something more to prove that they're going to be like a Fnatic TSM, where I know they're going to be top 4 at theory all the events.
So are they capped? Are they capped at the level they're at now? You know, we've talked about that for other teams. So how do you get uncapped? Is simple in 2016 the answer? I keep bringing up this question. We talked about it before. But you've got this ridiculously amazing player out there. Yeah, okay, maybe he's a primary AWPer, but we know he can play with a rifle. Do you bring him in for a Flamey? Do you bring him in for an Edward? Is he the guy that uncaps Na'Vi and pushes them through into this territory you're talking about?
The problem is I don't know, because it feels like with all the baggage he brings with him outside of the game, I mean, technically inside the game, but I mean outside of what he's doing on his computer, with all that baggage, that also could play the other way and really fuck Na'Vi up completely and make him even worse as a team, even if he plays awesome. So there is that question. The thing for Na'Vi is, at the moment, I wouldn't be panicking at all if I'm them. You still are good enough that when you're having a great series, you can beat anyone in this tournament. That's still definitely the case. You can win events. That's not a problem. You can win events. You're going to have a lot of top placings if you stick with this lineup. It seems like it's a good bunch of guys where... I don't mean that like the fucking idiot way that players say, okay, it's great guys. I mean like a good bunch of players. Like they've got a good toolkit there to be able to do things with. So for them, I don't think there's any rush to change anything, put it that way. I still think that they're a team where, even if they're not the best, if they just chill and they do well, there's going to be tournaments where Fnatic and TSM don't do so well and they're in position to win the tournament. That should still be the case, I think.
Okay, right. So now we'll move up. I'll just make sure I've got the checklist. Yeah, I think we've talked about everyone. That's important. So let's talk about, we talked about NAP at the top of the show. So let's talk about Virtus.Pro. I mean, I couldn't believe how strong they were looking here. I got to say, they meant business. Everyone's level was back to where it should be. You know, Snacks and Bialy were, you know, they weren't having that weird inconsistent thing where like only one of them could turn up in a game. I thought Taz played really well, considering he's meant to be sort of the veteran dead weight in the team. They continued this new tactic where Neo's AWPing over Pasha, and it's really working out for them. It's really, I mean, it's showing how good Neo is as a player even now, to be able to do that. But it seemed to give them this new lease of life. Now, going through their results, So they had a 16-8 against Immunity, which is on Cobble. So 16-8, there's a bias in that map anyway, which always means one team's going to get rounds. You have a 16-8 again on Cobble against Cloud9. So then they're through, no problem. They beat NIP. It was close on Train, bizarrely. But then they absolutely wrecked them on Inferno, which I didn't predict at all. I thought it was going to be a 3-mapper. No. And then the Fnatic game, that's got to be heartbreak if you're a Virtus.Pro fan. Because... you 16-6 Fnatic on Mirage. You're so close to winning on Inferno. You lose 16-14, predicated on like a couple of ridiculous rounds, like just those ridiculous Fnatic rounds that they have. And then obviously mentally you're just deflated going into Cobblestone, which is a map you've been great on all tournament and probably should have done much better. You lose 16-7. They were that close to putting Fnatic out of the tournament. So what did you make of Virtus.Pro overall? I mean, do we need to reassess what we think about them at this point?
Only in as much as a lot of people before SIVO were calling that they've fallen off, they're never going to be as good again, because they were in one of their slumps where they were having like every 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 events was pretty underwhelming, was bad even. We're finishing like 7th place, we're finishing in 5th place. That's true, their form had been bad. But what I saw here was, when you add this performance to the SIVO result, I think VP's back as an elite level team. This is like a top 4, top 5 team in the world right now. The way they played at this tournament, they're actually the team I feel the most sorry for. Believe it or not, I don't feel the most sorry for EnVyUs, even though they made the final and Kenny S was crying and stuff. No, because that was actually the best case scenario almost they could have hoped for. Things went so well for them. The teams they were playing, the teams they were beating, how amazing they were performing on certain maps. It went above and beyond what they could expect. VP, I'm being serious right now, I think VP played the second best Counterstrike in this tournament. Their problem is they had to play Fnatic in the semi-final. I think they were fucking unreal in this tournament. I think the way they played in the Fnatic semi-final, they were almost as close to beating them as you can probably get and still lose. It was incredibly close. They played absolutely lights out, and it's not their fault at all that they weren't in the final and that they didn't win this tournament. They did nothing wrong whatsoever. Fnatic just had a fucking unreal comeback on that Inferno game. Crims just played like a fucking god, it was like he was a fucking god warrior, Rich. He was just doing work out there. And so I don't blame them whatsoever. I thought they played a fantastic tournament, great in the group stage, really good against NIP, great for a map and 3/4 of a map against Fnatic. And then unfortunately for them, they just happened to be playing the best team of all time who did some like movie level shit. So I don't blame them at all. They could have been in the final with a different bracket draw. They could have won this tournament still.
I mean, when Cobblestone came out randomly, we were in the crowd, we were watching that game. I was like, this is it, man. Even if it goes to the 3rd map. If there's one team at the moment that can give Fnatic a game on Cobblestone, it's probably Virtus.Pro.
Should have been,
yeah. And everything just seemed to align. I was, like I said, I mean, the guys were pretty, they took it pretty hard. I caught up with the guys at the after party. We were having a few drinks and that. You know what it's like with those guys. They really fucking wanted the major, Like, it was...
Thing is, they should have taken it hard. Like the same thing I described about Na'Vi and C9. If you're not undoubtedly the best team, you know that you're going to have these tournaments where you're playing really well, tournament where you're just playing okay, you can't quite get it going. So when you've got it like they had it, you have it full blown. They're just in like God mode, basically. Like everything's working well. That's where you have to capitalize. You have to strike while the iron's hot. If you're Cloud9, you make all those finals, you've got to win one of them. You can't just think, well, I'll be in more finals. That's the classic mistake that people make when they have the really good tournament. And sometimes you never make another final in your career. And you spend your whole career wishing, oh, I wish I'd thought differently, I'd had a different mentality. So I understand why VP would be crushed. Because like I said, they're the ones I actually feel the most sorry for. I think that they played some of the best CS in the whole tournament, and yet they leave in just a semi-final. This could have been a second major for them, realistically.
Yeah, I think so, man. It was like it was fucked up, but they can feel a lot happy. I mean, they did better than I actually thought maybe they were going to do, and especially when they drew Fnatic, I was like, stylistically, there's just no chance. But they, like you said, man. I mean, they were closest to beating them at the tournament. Everybody was at the tournament, all the press people. They were like, because that series was so fucking good, because right in them, you've got two comprehensive games of one team just playing amazing Counterstrike, and it's sandwiched. They sandwiched 16-14. Could have gone either way. It was just a classic series. Everybody was like, "That's the final right there." And even then, I was like, "Okay, this is really good for EnVyUs because that series must have taken so much out of Fnatic, which is what makes Fnatic's triumph all the more spectacular. Just quickly, I'll ask you your thoughts on, the crowd booing Olof during the interview.
The problem with that, okay, is that I know that you've done that video where you said like booing should be allowed, and you mentioned it when we were on, I think it was DreamHack Tours.
Yeah, but not in interviews.
No, here's the thing though. That's why I referenced that, because I think in that sense, in a different context, you have a perfectly valid point, which is the idea that you don't have to fucking cheer for the guy who's on the enemy team or whatever. You can definitely boo. But the difference is you boo when they're coming out to be like, yeah, I'm cheering my fan, like, ooh, boo, fuck you, or whatever. You boo in a scenario where like, I mean, that's probably actually the only scenario you should boo is when they come out or something, because that is a standard sports type thing. Put it this way, if you're at a football ground, yeah, we all think it's fine to boo the other guy. It's not fine to boo when he gets a career-ending injury and he's fucking writhing on the floor. And that's when it's not that cool to boo anymore, you know?
Yeah.
So in the same vein, don't boo Olofmeister as he's in the winners interview where both teams played incredible CS and he just did some amazing shit and all you're doing now is just ruining his moment a bit. And not only that, again, the reason it sucks for Olofmeister and Crims is, what the fuck did they ever even do? Flush is the one you think cheats. Yeah. Olofmeister doesn't do it. He just plays fucking phenomenal Counterstrike in a team. Like, I don't even know why you booed him. He didn't not shake someone's hand 2 years ago when he wasn't even in the team. It doesn't even logically make sense. Also, let's be real. Some of those were just salty VP fans who were just like, they had the fucking Polska written in the Sharpie Rich on their arm. They had the questionable background of where they might have come from. Were they from Germany? Who can know? We can't speculate on these things in my position. But they were just salty, Rich. They were just salty their team didn't win, which I understand, but don't take it out like that. That's just, you lack class, okay? You're lacking a bit of class there.
I mean, this is the reality, though. It's like, look, right? Boo them during the game. Boo them as they're walking to the stage. Boo them as they're walking off the fucking stage. But, like, Olofmeister was giving credit to Virtus.Pro and actually being like a fucking good sport and talking about what a great series of Counter-Strike it was. Boo! Boo! Like, that's fucking ridiculous, isn't it? Like, I mean, that's like something from The Simpsons. Like, do you know what I mean? Hey, guys, we all had a great... We just want to thank our opponents. Boo! He's thanking the team we support. Fucking boo! It was absolutely ridiculous. I couldn't even believe that was happening. And then, fair play to Taz. He was on it, straight out there and telling the crowd to calm down. What did you think of that moment?
I mean, obviously, it's nice for Taz. Unfortunately, that's the sort of moment where I think I took it a little bit differently to some people, which is that, listen, it's mad props to Taz for doing it. Like, that's obviously like a baller move. Like, listen, like I can help out here. Unfortunately, it also makes me think like even less of those fans, because it's like they literally just like, oh, but the player that we like told us to be, so now we think it's okay. Yeah, clap, everyone. Our leader has commanded it. Like, it's just a bit feckless, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, at that juncture, like, Taz definitely doesn't have to get involved. Like, he can just walk off stage. He can be feeling sorry for himself. And I know there's people out there that maybe think Taz is a bit of an attention whore and that, like, he'll do whatever he can to put himself center stage. But I actually thought that was not just, like, a great moment for the whole tournament or indeed a great moment for esports. It was actually at that moment fucking necessary. It actually was ridiculous. Like, the interview was... And the thing is... The way Taz framed it was a lot better than the whole ESL. Come on, guys, we don't want booing at our event. No, fuck that. That's retarded. Like,
his was better. Like, show respect. Like, look at this guy played great. Yeah, that was good. No, here's the thing, Richard. Just to make sure the context is clear. Let's not get anything wrong here. Taz definitely loves attention. He definitely does love to be center stage. But that's why it was ideal, because he used that power for good, Rich. It's like if you're in war and you need to send in like a crack squad of people to evacuate someone. You don't want to send in the guy who's a bit nervous around guns. You want to send in the guy who's a legit Navi psychopath who actually loves the smell of napalm and like dead people all around him. That's your perfect guy to send in to just gun down a village full of like insurgents or whatever.
There's
your metaphor right there.
Doing that now, yeah. I like metaphors where
Rich, here's what he does. He's machine gunning into a crowded room, which does contain insurgents, but also contains innocent men trying to dive away from tables. And then he turns to the camera, because there's a camera in the scenario, and just goes, I'm on it. Killing people.
At least you didn't do the crocodile joke this time.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway... I thought it was a great moment. Just as an aside while we're here, this whole it's a family show thing, I've been really heartened actually by the Counterstrike community reaction to this whole family show thing. That people are now posting saying, no, fuck that. This game is, 16 plus or 18 plus, depending on where you live, for a reason. It's adult content anyway. And therefore, why is the odd swear word? I'm not talking about going full scoots on a desk, like where it's just, yeah, motherfuckers, we're here, we're in this shit, and straight in the intro, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, okay, think about, again, League of Legends. Ultra clean, sanitized, sterile, a broadcasting experience that's all polish but no soul, right? And when Rivington dropped that, holy shit, they've won the game. Like, he couldn't believe that they'd actually done it, and he dropped a holy shit. That's probably been the best moment in League of Legends casting, like, in the last 12 months. Because it was something genuine. It actually pulled you out of it. Now, I'm not saying a desk or a player should be dropping F-bombs every third word, like I managed to rein it in, you managed to rein it in. But, if you're having a genuine emotional moment and that manifests itself in adult language, hey, we're all watching an adult game. It's not a fucking family show. It's not for kids. It's like, look, you see it in football. You see, professional footballers let one slip out from time to time. Just happens, in the heat of the moment. I don't think it's anything we need to sort of repress. You know what I mean?
Not at all. No, it has its place. Now, yeah. Listen, we're not going to go the other way. It would be unprofessional to just be dropping F-bombs all the time. And like that. That also would ruin the show, by the way. Even people who like swearing, it'd be like, that doesn't make sense. It's not economical use. But every now and then, when it's appropriate, it's absolutely fine to do that. I'll give you an example, okay? Here's what I think is a real example. Let's say someone was being interviewed before a match, and he doesn't just go completely crazy and go, and everyone's fucking kind of. But if he just said and they were like, what message do you have to your opponent? And they were just like, we're gonna fuck you up. That would be a perfect moment to use it. That would be ideal, the effect it would have. Because the problem is, I know what they think they're saying. By the way, that stage guy was probably joking when he said the whole family show thing. He was just trying to do some banter there, okay? But even so. That is a trend that we've seen in esports. People do want to button it up in that sense. So my problem with that is, there's like a great Mark Twain quote. I remember it was like, censorship is telling a man he can't eat steak because a baby can't chew it. So the idea is you're making everyone become a baby now. No one can enjoy what a man can enjoy because since the baby can't, now no one can. So the idea is, I don't have any problem with kids watching if they want to. I don't give a fuck about that. But don't ruin what should be a great sport, which is primarily for people who are like 16, 17 above, because 8-year-old kids, someone wants them to watch. No, it's an adult thing. We want to be able to enjoy it as adults, I think that's reasonable. Yeah,
exactly right, man. So, like I say, getting back to the point, lots of credit to Virtus.Pro, lots of credit to Taz. It was a great moment of sportsmanship. If Virtus.Pro keep going the way they're going with this new look, Neo, Orping, I think they're going to be real contenders at every tournament again, like they should be. And they're well on course to be, one of the... I mean, they are already, but, persistently moving forward, still one of the greatest teams, of this kind of modern CSGO era. So I was really impressed with them, felt super sorry for them. But at the end of the day, Fnatic were just in God mode, which I guess we'll jump ahead to the final now, unless there's anything specific you would like to add about TSM. Because obviously, I suppose, well, look, in talking about EnVyUs, we can't really leave out TSM, can we?
Yeah.
So, It was a good series. I feel that kind of TSM, again, the veto was a little bit of a strange one for me. And they allowed EnVyUs to pick Cash, and obviously they just schooled them on Cash at IEM. So TSM, I'll just recite it for you here. EnVyUs remove Overpass, TSM remove Cobblestone, and that allowed EnVyUs to pick Cash. Now, again, I don't know if there's anything you can do differently there. I don't know if TSM...
There isn't, unfortunately. Because TSM, here's the thing. TSM has a super deep map pool, but the one map they don't like is Cobblestone. At the moment, EnVyUs, that's one of the maps they're really good on. So, in that scenario, there's nothing they could do there. I think the maps were fine for TSM. In fact, if I look at these maps, I would have predicted TSM to win. The problem here was... First of all, I can't separate in this match from the information we got just before the game that in warm-up for the match, Device's mouse broke. And he had to literally use a mouse he doesn't use from a different brand in the match. Not as in it broke a day before and he bought a new one and he warmed up. As in warm-up, he had to just plug in a new mouse and play a best of 3 against one of the hottest teams in the world right now. And it was still a 3-map series, which there were chances for TSM to win in. So unfortunately, I can't take that out of my mind that the best player for TSM and one of the most consistent players in the world had this reasonably drastic adaptation to make all of a sudden. And by the way, still played fine. Still played a pretty good series all in all and didn't suffer that much. But that makes me wonder, okay, what would have happened if that hadn't been the case? I don't take anything away from EnVyUs. They played very well. They deserved to win the match. The problem is that is there in the back of my mind. In TSM, I don't think played bad in this tournament. I think they were awesome up until this point. I think they still had chances even in this series. I think in this case, we'll try to forget the device mouse thing and just say EnVyUs were in insane form. Every tournament, every series, they came in really strong form. So maybe for TSM, just not the right day for them. And obviously they still could have won a tournament like this. What's great about this tournament is somehow we did get to the point where in the final 4, all 4 teams could have won this tournament, and it was legit in that sense. We luckily did get the right draw in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost as if we arrived at that conclusion despite the format rather than because
I think we
of it.
did. There was a bit of luck involved in that sense.
I mean, I interviewed Dupree. I just put that interview out. It's on the Global Offensive subreddit right now, but it's also in my YouTube channel. I interviewed Dupree, and Dupree just said, look, man, when you're talking with the top 4 teams, maybe even the top 6 teams right now, anybody can beat anyone. And it's literally those tiny little degrees of success and failure. Now, everybody else in the TSM kind of, all the players had these like booths with balconies and like mini bars and stuff. And so they could watch the final and watch the games from an elevated position. Anyway, I was in there when I was doing the interview with Dupree. Everybody else looked kind of a bit downtrodden about it. But Dupree was like, look, he goes, yeah, I'm pissed off now, but I reckon we all wake up tomorrow and we probably think that the result's about right, you know, like we finished where we probably should have done. And at that point, I even said in the interview, I think you've lost to the team that's going to win overall. And you know, it was a great series, but you know, they seem to be lacking a little something against EnVyUs just when it mattered, and I can't really put my finger on what it was. But I think bizarrely, like despite Device having to change his mouse, he still was one of the better players. You know, on TSM. It didn't. Which,
by the way, props, by the way. This is a guy who has had problems with choking. And in theory, in the past, if there was any excuse, it was going to get to him. So I think he played admirably in that sense. Like, that was great. The problem for TSM here is, again, when you talk about where a team finishes, it's not good enough to go, right, well, top 4 major is still pretty good. You have to look at what their expectations were. And unfortunately, bearing in mind, remember, all the teams in the top 4 all have majors, except TSM. TSM doesn't have a major, but they've won a ton of events this year, and now they're in position where they legit can win majors. Also, you look at the bracket draw, and if they'd got to the final, they're playing Fnatic. Well, they're the only team in the fucking world you can legit repeatedly expect to beat Fnatic. So, unfortunately for TSM, yeah, top 4's nice, and we did win a map off EnVyUs and all that, but they know that this was a chance to win a major, and unfortunately they let it get by them. So, that's going to be something that will haunt them to a degree, I think.
Yeah, I hope not too much. You know, there's a lot of talk at the moment. Again, rumors in the scene that just prior to this tournament, there were talks about TSM maybe making a change, and that Zipnix might be getting dropped from the team.
I hope not. I can't think who they'll get.
Well, the rumor is, and this rumor was kind of backed up. I didn't pick up on it at the time in the Ace of Predator Masters because Cadian was me and Cadian were doing something. We'd had a few beers, so I don't think Cadian was probably supposed to let it slip. But he was just going, Richard, I want you to imagine what would happen if TSM dropped Zipnix and then tried to replace him with AZ from Dignitas. And I went, and I was going, well, that'd be fucking retarded. That'd be stupid, right?
Doesn't make sense.
That would make sense because, you know, Zipnix is like the glue that holds the team together. He does all this wicked
totally
different
different styles, positions.
Yeah, and keep in mind, by the way, I thought he played really well at this tournament, actually, Zipnix. But by all accounts, this is something that has been looked at. Literally, you know, phone calls or whatever, however people do this shit, were made. This is what everyone's been saying privately. And obviously,
this just shows you how teams... This is where people think you're arrogant if you're an analyst, okay?
Yeah,
just because a team's winning doesn't mean they know why or they know what the fuck they're doing. The in-game leader might have a really good sense. One of the star players might know what he's doing in the star player role. But sometimes these teams, it's almost like fucking folk magic when you're in like some tribe somewhere where they're just doing shit and it works and they're like, right, do that again. That's the magic routine, you know. And you know these cargo cults? Have you ever heard of this, Rich? Maybe the people listening haven't, okay. The cargo cults in these like Caribbean islands or whatever, what they would do was, it's the South Seas actually, in this area, years and years ago, I think it was in the 50s or something, the 40s and 50s, people came and I think they just used them as like temporary stopovers to go somewhere else for war or something, or cargo planes would stop nearby and then use them to go somewhere else. And these tribal people there don't understand technology in Western society. Okay, they haven't had any experience of it. So what happened was, since the people came and brought all these American goods and all these things, they think of them like a shamanic person would 1,000 years ago. And so they actually perform religious ceremonies where they think it will make aeroplanes come and to give them food drops and stuff like that, which is obviously never going to happen. That's not what's going on whatsoever. That's what pro players are like when they win. That's why pro players will go back to an old lineup that stopped working but did win 2 years ago or something. People really think that way. And so as a result, what's happening here is the logic for TSM is, oh, well, we had like a couple of events we didn't win, and AZ's like the best player in Dignitas, so why don't we just bring him into our team? Then our team will be even better, right? And it's like, well, you haven't thought of any of the logic there. What type of position does he play? What would he do in your team? He was already in your fucking team like a year ago, and it didn't work out very well then. Exactly for that reason, by the way. You remember AZ and Dignitas before wasn't that good because they put him into like a fucking supportive role because they had all the other fraggers that they have now. So I don't get the logic of it myself. I hope that's not a move they're really considering, because at the moment, this team's dynamite. They haven't done anything wrong. Keep this team together. It'll do well, I'm pretty sure.
Well, so, I mean, again, these are the rumors, and these are only rumors. You know, if I ever, again, because there'll be a Reddit thread about this now, and it'll be like, Richard Lewis said this, and then everyone will say, remember when Richard Lewis said JW was joining NIP? And what I actually said was an approach had been made prior to DreamHack, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, just the caveat, right? If I put it in print, I've confirmed it. If I'm just hearing it and talking about it, it's speculation. Right, and it's speculation that I'm not even invested.
Oh, has he died? See, they got to him. He speculated. The Danes got to him.
I'm sorry about that. Skype crashed again. So anyway, as I was saying, right, hopefully this will all get chopped together. It's just speculation, and at this point, I'm happy to say it's speculation, but it's speculation that's emanating from sources. People are saying this. People are putting this out into the public domain. So the reason why apparently it didn't go ahead, Duncan, was again one of these significant buyouts. That was kind of the stumbling block.
Okay.
So I don't know if they tried to do it before the major, but my understanding is that they did. And that Zipnix was aware of this going into this major.
That's even worse. That stuff kills me.
And, well, dude, but think about how he played. Think about how he played, keeping all of that in mind. That makes his fucking performance astronomical. Because, you know, like on the one hand, sure, maybe it's a motivating factor. Like, now you're playing for your future. And I don't see how they could go ahead with this move now. Not based on how he played at the major. Where he was great in all of the, you know, great in all the series that mattered. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if they'll still go ahead with it, thinking that's going to get them to the promised land. But, you know, I don't know. I'll need to do some digging into it and find out. But again, this is the dirty secret of the Danish scene.
That's a very naive way of thinking. That the reason they're not winning is because they don't have AZ. Like, that's not why, mate. Here's the thing. When you're a team like TSM, you've got all the pieces you need. You've got everything you need. You're good on fucking 6 out of 7 maps. And the 7th map, you beat Fnatic on, and it's one of their best maps. Are you fucking kidding me? You've got everything you could want. If you don't win, it's because people didn't play well or you did the wrong approach. These are all fixable things. TSM's such a good team. If I'm them, I'm not fucking with anything. Like next 6 months, I'm like, no changes. We're just going to try it with this lineup.
So
we've only won 4 out of the last 7 events, for fuck's sake.
It's true, man. Like, so let's talk about.
We didn't win 7 out of 7. We must do roster changes. Oh, what used to happen before you had this lineup? Yeah, we never even got to a final. Never did fuck all, actually. But go for it then. You've learned your lesson. Like, you kidding me? Bring back fetishes, what I say. He was a good guy. Whatever happened to him?
Whatever happened to Fetish, yeah. So anyway, let's talk about EnVyUs. Now, when I looked at your preview that you wrote on Goal Per 10, you kind of put EnVyUs, it was not in the top. Were they in potential winners or were they in the second bracket? I forget.
The only potential winners was Fnatic and TSM. And that didn't mean potential winner, by the way. That meant like lock to win pretty much.
Yeah.
There was a group of two who were like extremely likely one of these two wins. And by the way, one of them won. And then there was another group of four where these were the people where they have a chance to win if they get like the right bracket draw, if they're playing really well. And there was four in there from what I remember. I think it was Na'Vi, VP, C9, and EnVyUs. I think those were the four I had in there.
So I mean, I as you know on the show, I did say EnVyUs. I was super confident EnVyUs were going to win. I really thought they were going to. They were, was it 15-10 up on Dust 2?
Yep.
Against Fnatic.
And they were playing on CT side at that point in time.
Yeah. So what the fuck happened? I mean, let's just look at that moment in isolation. Because this is when I knew I was going to come on this show and Thorin would be there with his shit-eating grin and a full head of hair. Told you, Richard, there's only one analyst in this scene, bitch. Right? Like, I knew that was coming, right? So I was, like, sat there watching it, and I knew as soon as they lost Dust 2, especially a 4-0 overtime, I knew that was it. The final was over. There wasn't, even with Cobblestone being next, like, EnVyUs were just mentally fucked. So let's start at that 15-10 point, where EnVyUs have got one more round. That's all they need to do. They've beaten Fnatic. They're one map up, and they're going into Cobblestone. One of their better maps, yes. Probably one of Fnatic's best maps as well. But, you know, it's going to be a close game, right? What went wrong? Why could they not get over the fucking finish line?
I mean, the problem is I don't even think it was as much on the EnVyUs side as the Fnatic side. Like, this reminds me of the VP Inferno game. Because in a weird way, I don't think that the team that lost from the big lead did that much wrong. I think they still did all right. And I think in 90% of other scenarios, they just do get there. They win this round here, they get through there. You have to remember, when Fnatic won in both of these scenarios, they were right backs against the wall, and they were in scenarios where every time they got down to like a 2v3 or 2v4, you thought, right, they're probably fucked now, and then some miracle flusher kills would happen, or Olofmeister, if you remember in this game, I think he had one round where he got like 3 huge pickoffs with the AWP, and then Crims was just doing fucking godlike shit, like that 1v3 earlier on before they got the 15-10 was ridiculous, and then obviously you can't ignore the factor that in both of these exact games, where the other team was playing awesome, and Fnatic does an insane comeback. Both comebacks are triggered by these timeouts, where they time out, talk, come back like a totally different team, turn it on, and just go insane from there. So if I'm EnVyUs, I just feel like fuck timeouts. Like, we were going to win this game. It was going to happen. And so I don't think anyone choked in that sense. I mean, yeah, it's hard to really blame anyone. They did awesome. They got 10 T rounds in first half, and then they were up to 15-10. They had a game out. That should be a closeout at that point in time. Kiyashima was fucking rolling. I thought the game was going great.
Yeah. But I mean, so what happens in the timeouts? Can you speculate what goes on? I mean,
I guess I have an idea now.
Yeah, go on.
Like, here's the thing. On the surface, people, because a lot of people overrate Pronax as in terms of like tactics, as though he has like a big playbook and he's picking them all out. He's not really that sort of a tactical leader. The old Fnatic famously wasn't even that good on T sides. It was just the CT monster halves that they went off, and then they tried to just sort of get 3 out of 7 rounds or whatever point in the game to win. They weren't that great at stringing rounds together. So this is a new development for them. I actually get the sense from talking to people, and I actually reached out to one of these people in question, that Vogo, the coach that they have now, has been an integral part of this. Because as far as I know, they brought him on as an analyst at the last major, and then they made him a head coach, I think maybe like 3 events ago or something like that, like 3 or 4 events ago. And so what I think happened was, supposedly, he has a big say in whether they do the timeout. Because supposedly people in-game quite often just forget about it. Like, even Pronax forgets that you can do a timeout, and he's just thinking about the next round. Like, what do I do now? And you notice a lot of teams don't always take these timeouts. Like, teams like Cloud9 sometimes don't take a timeout at like the time you'd think would make sense. So I think he's calling the timeouts. And then within the timeout, one of the qualities I did notice that was good about Pronax is he seems to be a guy where what he is really good at is like calming people down and being like, listen, don't worry. Like, on that last round, people just weren't communicating enough. And listen, on this next round, we know that if we do that tactic again, it'll work for us because it works for us against this sort of team. He just sort of calms people down. So I think it's more that they just get there. They're in a bad spiral. Okay, it's going to shit. Everything's going badly. And he just sort of like levels them out again. And then when they're leveled out, they sort of have a reset and then they start to play well. I don't think he necessarily comes up with like I know in the movie you want him to be like, listen, guys, I've seen a hole here and we're going to pull this like ace in the hole out and we're going to do this crazy move and God damn it just could work. Like I know that's what the movie wants it to be, but that probably isn't what happened. So I think it's more like they just do a reset, which, let's face it, in itself is a fucking miraculous feat, because when you're tilting and when you're getting wrecked and when you're about to lose the map, to completely reset and then mount a one round by round comeback like that is extremely rare.
So I mean, look, let's which way round do you want to do it? Well, I guess we'll end with Fnatic, actually, to the victors, the spoils. But let's talk about EnVyUs. Now, you said, you don't think anyone choked overall in the final. Obviously,
in the first map.
When it came to Cobblestone. Now, look, we both know, we've talked about this before on shows privately. Kenny S used to have these mental blocks, in particular against NIP. And back in the day when he was on Very Games, and whenever he had to play NIP, and it was the second... Well, the top team in the world, the second team in the world, and they were clashing. Kenny S never really turned up in those games. And then you feel that, like, when he moved to Titan and he was putting in these godlike performances against all and sundry, that, okay, well, he's lost that choking element now. It was just, he was in a bad team, like Titan just couldn't win, even when he was dropping 50 frags. But here against Fnatic, once again, arguably the biggest game of his career. Well, maybe not even arguably. He goes 2 for 17. Yeah, it is. He goes 2 for 17 on Cobblestone against Fnatic, and this is what makes it, all the more like, it wasn't like JW was in vintage JW form. There was a real opportunity here for Kenny S to be the difference maker, and he was. He sort of made the difference for Fnatic on Cobblestone.
Yeah.
So. Obviously, there was footage of him. He was in tears at the end, a little bit upset. What do you make of his performance? And is he going to grow out of this choking? I suppose is a way to put it. Is this just a bad day at the office?
Oh, definitely it was a bad day at the office. The rest of the tournament, he was fine. There was no problem. I don't think... here's the thing. I don't think he's ever going to be the superstar of EnVyUs. But what's beautiful about EnVyUs is I don't think EnVyUs is ever going to have a superstar. I think they're back to the mode when they first made this team, when they used to be LDLC, where the beauty of the team was they had a ton of players who were all really good, and that made you really versatile. And that actually allows you to cover some of your weaknesses, because when a good player is doing badly, you really literally do have 3 people who can step in there and give you 30, 20 frags, whatever it is you need, So that's a great quality to have, and it'll maybe make even choking and stuff like that not be as much of an issue, because you don't have to carry. Unfortunately, in this scenario, this is where Kenny S should have been really good. Like, listen, first of all, in realistic terms, EnVyUs should have been 1 map up. So it shouldn't have mattered they lost Cobblestone. They would have had a 3rd map to overcome these problems. Maybe he could have Olofmeister style come back on the 3rd one. The problem is, this was like the worst game of his entire career. And he was starting, I think they started CT side on Cobblestone. So that's even a map where you should be able to pick up those ult frags. That's like an ideal one to get rolling and get a bunch of kills. Maybe on T side, you might have your issues, but CT side, you'd think you would be able to do it. So yeah, but sadly as well, it's the opponent, because in Titan, he was famously awesome against Fnatic. He always did well against them. And part of the reason why is because of JW. JW's style, he used to just eat that up. Like, JW was his favorite dinner, he used to go, oh, great, I'm playing Fnatic. I'm definitely going to get my kills against JW. And JW used to go away from AWPing even against Kenny S. He was like, fuck this, it's just going to ruin the game for me. So I actually feel like this should have even been a good matchup. So I think, unfortunately, it's just a tragic scenario. There's not a lot you can say about it. I don't think he's like a bad player or whatever. It could be true that he chokes to a degree, because even though here's the thing, when he was in God mode, he never choked. He was fucking unreal then, and he used to do it even against all odds. He used to be amazing. But that was also when he was absolutely his prime peak. There have been times in his career in the past, like you said, the first very games go around, they were losing every final. He has been in situations where he is one of the other guys, along with Existence, who was in a lot of those teams that bombed out of the majors and group stages, and he didn't play particularly well. So there is maybe something to that. Like, maybe he does. I don't think it's that he's a full-on choker, but there's an element of that within that, where he underperforms sometimes, or the pressure gets to him more than other people. So I think that's plausible. But I think this one game you have to just write off as like a terrible game. I mean, Olofmeister himself had a game like this earlier against Virtus.Pro. Difference is, Olofmeister came back in the next 2 games and put 45 frags down. So, not everyone can do that. That takes a special kind of individual.
Yeah, and just to say as well, sorry, just to correct it, it wasn't 2 for 17, it was 4 for 19.
It was like 4 or something like that.
Yeah, 4 for 19, my bad. I just looked at the stats now. Apparently, Kiyashima was on 4 for 19 as well, I think. So, not a lot of people have called him out for choking, I guess. But, you know, apples and oranges, whatever. But for me, I saw lots of positives, like, overall for EnVyUs. Like, this team's been together for, what, like 2 tournaments? They won 1, made it to the final of a major. I don't think they should feel too despondent, too upset at all. I think they're way out in front, expectations-wise, for where they should be, given their lifespan. So I'm really intrigued to see how they're going to do now. You know, are they going to be the Fnatic topplers? I'd argue that they can do it. This was probably just a bit too much too soon, you know. And moving on to Fnatic, you've just got to credit them with an absolute ridiculous tournament that pretty much displayed everything that was good about Fnatic from start to finish. Like, it just shows they are the complete package as a team right now. And I say that on the basis that this wasn't even really vintage or polished Fnatic. At times it was.
Not at all.
The 16-2 against Na'Vi, that was unreal. That's one of the most one-sided maps I've seen from 2 top-tier elite teams ever. Literally. That was like watching, you know, when I talked about Kinguin versus Virtus.Pro, the 16-0, there's at least sort of the caveat that Virtus.Pro were having an internal meltdown at the time. All right, and Kinguin just took advantage of that. This was a Na'Vi that, you know, realistically have been getting better and better every tournament. They came up against Fnatic and they got absolutely beasted. It was ridiculous how good Fnatic were in comparison to Na'Vi. But then as the tournament moves on, you know, what you've really got to give credit to Fnatic for isn't just, you know, the use of the timeouts, which are right, are godlike, but man, they dug so deep at certain points. You know, there was points against Luminosity. You're like, you know, holy shit, they could conceivably lose a map here. Dug deep, dug out a 16-14. Then you go against Virtus.Pro, right? And that is Virtus.Pro's series all day long. They dig deep. They pull out another 16-14. They get to the final against EnVyUs. They come back from 15-10 to make it 15-15 and win 4-0 in overtime. This is the gutsiest team I think I've ever seen. And they did that back-to-back series. Like, you know, they're usually when a team has to dig that deep to win, it burns you out. Your adrenaline's gone. You're so exhausted that the next time you face that next hurdle, your legs are heavy. You can't get over it. You know, you used up all your energy. Fnatic just had it in spades, just over and over again. Whenever they needed to pull some miracle out the bag, they had miracles to spare, you know? Like, we're talking literally about, you know, sure, maybe the Luminosity one, you don't call it a miracle because you should win a best of 3, but it was still... should have been Luminosity's map on Mirage. The Virtus.Pro one, that's a miracle. The EnVyUs comeback, that's a miracle. Like, literally, I can't think of a team that's pulled out comebacks, you know, to that degree in such frequency in one tournament before. It was just unreal.
I mean, that's the thing. This is like... I've never in CSGO seen a display of mental fortitude like this, because that's what won them this series. It's like the ability to not be down by a massive portion and start thinking, right, next map. Like, everyone now is going to... This is where interviews ruin fans. Because fans hear all this same shit. What happens is, here's like a principle for you to understand. When winners do interviews, like a Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali type guy, and they tell you all the things that you want to hear, right? Like, I practice all the time. All I do is think about winning. I never give up. You know, I always trust my teammates, depending on what sport you're in, etc. When they say all this stuff, here's the problem. Losers who are players hear that and they think, oh, if you just say that stuff, if you just think that way, that's all that matters, right? And they don't do it, okay? So that even the shittest player tells you, well, my goal is to win this tournament and I believe in my teammates and I battle to the end, and you know what? I play each game like it's my last. No, you don't, mate. Sometimes you get fucking bodied, you completely give up mentally, and actually you just start fucking around trying to get stats even. Teams don't do that. It's actually taken for granted that teams will give up and will break. There's a breaking point where you hit certain teams on a map, they're just thinking about the next map, especially if it's not the end of the series. You know, there's a third map or it's the first map. They start thinking, right, we'll have to win the next one. Fnatic, this is a sign of a great team, okay, is that I always said this about some of the old teams, the old 1.6 teams, the greatest teams of all time. Part of how they win so many tournaments is that they don't do the old thing where in 1.6 it had gotten so good, teams were so good on some maps that every top series went like, map 1's my map, I win that. Map 2's your map, you win that. Map 3's the 50-50 one, and I'm going to try and win that one and win 2-1. The greatest teams, if you keep doing that, going to 3 maps every time, you're still the best team. You'll still win at like 60% of them. But the greatest teams were the one where map 1's your map, I play you super close. I narrowly beat you. Then I beat you on my map and just 2-0 in the series. If you can do that, that's where you're going to be a dynasty. You're going to win like fucking 20 tournaments in your career. Because now you're winning the tournaments where maybe it would have been more risky or maybe you shouldn't have won. That's what Fnatic did here. They had 2 series where they had no right probably to win the series. Very likely they're supposed to lose these series. Like the teams they're playing are in super peak form. It's the right maps for the opponents. They're on Inferno for VP. They're on Dust 2 for the EnVyUs guys. They're even playing good on those maps. And then Fnatic just somehow put out these amazing combats. We haven't seen anything like that in Counterstrike. This wasn't even Fnatic close to their best form. Like, I'll tell you this. Here's a crazy thing to consider, okay? So Fnatic just won another major. They won in this amazing fashion. They won with these comebacks. Did anyone see JW in this tournament? I didn't. He just won a fucking major. He's now won his 3rd major. He actually is in a slump as a player right now. He didn't even play well in this tournament. He was one of the guys shit in the bed. I think he was actually one of the guys against maybe VP. Was it VP?
Yeah,
no, it might have been the Dust 2 game even that he was just shit in the bed. He was doing terribly. But they got so much depth there. They got so many good players. Flusher just basically... If I'm fucking JW, I'm like, thanks, Flusher. You just won me this major right now, mate, because you're not even supposed to be the best player, and you went absolutely ham the whole series.
Flusher and Crims at times just fucking put the team on their back, man. There's no doubt.
Crims is just a fucking hero. He's just a soldier, mate. He just goes out there, he plugs. He really is the Navi. He's just the grizzled guy who's seen war, and he just survives, you know. Day to day, he just plugs away. And then Olofmeister didn't have that many great games, but every now and then he did just show up and do like star player frags. He got the frags where I remember there was a kill on Cobblestone. I think it was when he was in the drop-down room and he's looking out the window and he was versus Snacks out of VP. And it was Snacks or Bialy, one of them. And they had like almost full health. They had a gun and Olofmeister had like just picked up an AK or something. He had like 8 health. And in that scenario, he's supposed to die there. He's supposed to jump out the window. It's supposed to be over for him. And he flashes himself out and just like insta-frags the guy with like the first bullet right into the head. And if he doesn't like insta-frag him there, he dies there. The VP wins the round. The game rolls to VP. That's the sort of like star player frag where when you can just pull that shit out, you can just win games for your team. Even if you didn't get the most kills, you know, you're getting the hardest kills, the one that you're not supposed to get. So, I mean... I don't know how Fnatic's doing it. It was like shape-shifting. They can just adapt to whatever comes before them.
Here's what's really strange, and this obviously will transition us so we can talk a bit about more general stuff before we close out the show. But here's what's really strange, right? So I'm there, and look, I didn't predict Fnatic to win, but there is no doubt, like you cannot even say for a second that the team that had the most complete and rounded set of skills and the strongest mentality, you know, they won the event. They deserve to win it. Just that's that simple, right? There's no debate, no discussion. Now, with the VP loss and the boos, I understood it, right? I understood it. Not during the interview, as I said, but, you know, I get it. You're a Virtus.Pro fan. Virtus.Pro play godlike. You've lost. Obviously, you're going to boo the winner. You're going to boo the team. You're going to, you know, whatever. There was this weird moment, right, where I'm in the press room. So keep in mind, one half of the room is all journalists, right? All journalists. And the other half of the room is where they're selling those fucking commemorative pins. So there's just there's a massive queue there all day long. People queuing up to get their commemorative pins. And then literally it was like you could only buy 3 at a time. So people would literally get into the front, buying 3, going back round, sometimes selling them in the queue for a profit, getting another 3. So it was just a
What moron in the queue would buy one when they're just about to buy it for less?
Because the queues were pretty heavy. I guess the way you look at it is maybe I paid double for this and I can flip it 3 months later for double that. And I've saved.
So basically, CSGO pins have become like the housing boom where people were buying it and flipping it.
Mate, it's just like skins, basically. You know, people are looking at just, you know, like it's kind of sad because the way I always thought it was to like say, hey, look, I turned up and supported a major. I got a little commemorative thing from that. People are just basically buying them, sell them on for profit. That was pretty much the whole thing that was going on the entire time. And you know, everyone I spoke to pretty much bought at least 10. You know, like at least 10 or 12, you know. I was just, and the thing is as well, you open them, and you basically it's profit every time. You know, you go on eBay, you go on Reddit, and you sell them. You will always make a profit, even on the lowest pins, because they can only be bought at a major. And the longer you sit on them, the more valuable they become. The ones from Katowice are fucking unreal now. You know, like. So anyway, that's the room. That's the setup, right? And Fnatic come through, having just won the trophy. All 5 of the players. Now, what I was expecting was that, you know, the press would give them a little polite ripple of applause, and they get took up. They were doing. There were so many requests for interview, they had to do a group press conference. That isn't what happened at all. First of all, they go past all the motherfuckers queuing for pins, and they're getting booed. Like, literally, like, super fucking loud. I didn't even know what was going on. I looked up, like, what's happening? Oh, Fnatic are coming through. And I was like, oh, surely it'll change once it gets to the journalists. Nah. There was even journalists fucking booing.
By the way, let me just pause you there, by the way. Yeah. That's another factor to bring up that people don't think of. Not only that, you know, every fucking idiot commentator who's like, and the crowd's on VP's side, they'll surely get a boost from that. Fnatic has every fan cheer fucking against them, want them to lose, boo them, and they still win these tournaments. Yeah. That's how fucking insane these men. And by the way, that's why Flusher of everyone is the best example of that. That guy doesn't give a fuck what you think about him. He plays the same way no matter what. And that's extremely rare for a CS player. I know players like, I won't name them, but some of them where if the crowd booed them, they'd fucking collapse. You'd see him play half as good.
So I couldn't even believe that. I mean, when I say journalists, I'm not talking you well-respected, older journalists. I'm talking about maybe some people from lesser publications, some people that maybe blagged the press pass or whatever. But I couldn't believe it. You know, there were actual journalists fucking booing them. And then they got up to do the press conference, which, again, you've just won a major tournament. You know, think about modern sports. I'd just be giving them 5 minutes, generic statements, get the fuck out of there, go celebrate, right? Especially given that at this point, the Fnatic LoL team were playing Origin in the finals as well, you know? So the management wanted to see how that was going, because it was 2-2 at the point they were brought up. So they got asked, like, you know, the usual ridiculous questions, you know, how are you going to spend the money? Fnatic were, like, super graceful. They answered all of these, like, retarded questions. And they must have been up there for, like, 20, 25 minutes after you've just won a final, answering all of them, right? I was sat up there just behind them, like, just, you know, offering a bit of moral support, like, how you doing, lads? You know what I mean?
What sort of questions were people asking?
Oh, dude, man. I mean, like, okay, like, how are you going to spend the money? What do you... I mean, I guess you kind of have to ask this, like, what does the booing hurt your feelings? You know, like, it was just... There wasn't anything... I mean, put it this way, Pronax was brilliant, actually. He took charge of the whole press conference, gave some fucking amazing answers. But, like, and there were some journalists there that asked some good questions. But here's the bit I wanted to make the point of, right? So I'm sat there in the press room, and again, I won't name who it is, but there were journalists next to me, again, who were in this room, and somehow some fans had wandered up as well. I don't even know why there were fans in a press conference. But some people go to me, oh, what do you think of Fnatic then? And I went, oh, I think great, you know, fucking what a great tournament like they've played. And I hate them, me.
What pieces of shit people are in Esports.
Yeah, I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? You hate them? It's gone. There's just something about them. They're just like arrogant or something. Like, couldn't even quantify why they disliked him. And I heard this from like 2 or 3 people that were watching this press conference. I'm like, and what one guy even said, yeah, I really fucking hate them. And then he opened his phone and it had a NIP logo on it. Right? So I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it was like literally being in like the fucking Twilight Zone. Do you know what I mean? Like, here's your champions being super nice, super graceful, answering all of these questions, being like really amazingly good people about it. So, like, I haven't even told you this bit. After the press conference, they stayed for like another 25 minutes to sign mouse pads and mouse mats and all that shit. Right? Didn't have to do that. There shouldn't have been any fans up there, really, I don't think, anyway. It was meant to be a press area, but they signed them for everyone, even some journalists. Probably some of the journalists go, I fucking hate you, sign my mouse, man. Yeah. So it was, I couldn't believe it. Like, I just felt so sorry for the guys. Like, I just thought, like, you're getting booed, coming to do a press conference. You got journalists in the room that are wasting your time, journalists that don't hold you with any respect. And this is the point I wanted to make, Duncan, right? Okay. Fnatic are the dominant team right now, right? Fnatic are the dominant team. No doubt about it. And I understand as a sports fan, sometimes you want to hate the dominant team. When Man United are winning every fucking Premier League and they're winning it in suspicious ways. Ferguson intimidating and bullying referees. Whatever, right? I understand football fans being salty about that. But then again, when you look back on their legacy, you just have to say, what a great fucking team, actually. What a great fucking team. What a great team, right? And it sucks when they're beating your team, and it sucks when they're winning everything, and your team's expected to win, and they're better than you. That's fucking sports. Deal with it, man. You're going to be alive for, like, you know, however many decades. And if you're a sports fan, get used to fucking disappointment. That's just life, right? If you support a team, it can only be good for a very small amount of time of your life. Now, I don't remember anyone when NIP were 87-0. Yeah, I had people coming to me going, if even players, and they were going, if NIP keep winning things, it's going to kill CSGO competitively. It's gonna, no one's going to be interested in it, no one's going to be bored. But I don't remember anyone ever saying, fucking hell, I hate NIP. I hate the way they win. I hate the way they're brilliant and have raised the bar for professional Counterstrike to an unparalleled height in CSGO. I don't remember anyone saying that. I don't remember them getting booed. I don't remember journalists turning up, I fucking hate NIP me, and showing me logos on their phone. I don't remember that happening. Everyone was super respectful of the NIP era, even though it kind of did suck because you could predict the winner accurately every fucking tournament for about, 18 months or whatever it was. But nobody gave NIP the same level of shit that Fnatic have gone through. Like, I can't even believe it. It blows my fucking mind.
Exactly. Here's the thing. Let no one ever suggest I have bias against any team. What fucking team wins tournaments? And am I like, yeah, they're not even that good. They're fucking shit, that team. Doesn't happen, mate. Like, we all know, anyone who's followed my Twitter, there's people in Na'Vi I think are fucking cunts as human beings. It's never stopped me saying they're fucking brilliant team, ranking them second, saying they're going to do really well in tournaments. Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you're fucking hater if you. It's like I said. Okay, I said this when the people booed Olofmeister, so I'll paraphrase it for Fnatic. Okay, if you don't like Fnatic, as in you don't like to watch them play, and you think they shouldn't be in the league, and you hope they lose, you just don't like high level Counter-Strike, mate. You're not a Counter-Strike fan. You're a fan of a team. You're basically a fan of a boy band, which is whatever team you support, and you have their posters on your wall. You're not a fan of music. You're not a fan of really good stuff.
Yeah, exactly right, man. And look, it's very rare I sympathize with someone that's just won like all this money, and continue to win money. It's very rare I would even sympathize with the number one team at any period of time. But these are still young guys, These are still people that, look, I'm all for booing them during a game, get that banter going, get that rivalry. But like, these guys do so much for the fucking sport. Like, I mean, seriously, they're some of the nicest people when you get them one-on-one. I've even said I can't explain those Flusher clips. Didn't stop me shaking his hand when he won a fucking major. Didn't stop me saying well done. Because, regardless about those clips in the past, where are those clips now? They're not. And he just went fucking ham again at a major. So yeah, maybe he got away with something in the past. We'll never know at this point. You just got to take things at face value. That's all you can do at this juncture. That's all you can do. You just got to give respect where it's due. Like, so really weird, really fucked up. Which brings me on to my next point, actually, quite nicely. There was a moment where I thought, while they were coming through past that massive queue and getting booed, and then getting sort of mobbed by fans, maybe some of the same ones that were booing them, Maikelele made a Facebook post. I don't know if you saw this. No. I'll just read it to you. It's only short. He says, "Am I the only one that thinks adding bodyguards to a tournament is very needed? This is something we need to think about." And I'm, of course, talking about all the esports games out there. In the Lanxess Arena, there were so many fans everywhere, and it was kind of impossible to go from the VIP lounge to anywhere else because the fans just ran over you. I'm not saying this isn't fun, but sometimes it's getting too much when you just want to go and buy something to eat or whatever. Now, let's say some psycho kid or psycho friends betted on our game and lost. They can actually do whatever they want without any problems. People need to have a public toilet. In such tournaments, we need to eat in public. I think the security is much needed at this point. Even when my team was in our VIP lounge, fans were coming inside and asking for autographs and pictures. So I think bodyguards are needed or more secured space for players. I love my fans, and I really like fan meetings and everything like that. What are your thoughts about it? So my thoughts about it, Duncan, at this point are, with the way things are going with skins betting and more extreme behaviors manifesting themselves, I do think it is only a matter of time before we see a serious assault on a player, or definitely a player being put in a intimidating or frightening situation, which you don't want. And just to give you an idea of the layout, because I know you weren't there, the VIP lounges were up on the 5th floor of this huge stadium. To get down to the press area, do interviews or anywhere else, you had to come down, obviously, like, you know, 3 floors, whatever it was in the lift. You had to come down, and then you had to walk from literally the open area where all the shops were, all the fast food were, all the T-shirt stalls, everything else. And it was literally impossible. I mean, I did an interview with Freakazoid. We walked from Cloud9's booth down to the press room, and it took us about 40 minutes. We're talking a 5-minute walk. It was unreal. You know, we had to stop all the time. People wanting pictures and stuff. And again, I don't mind that so much. Like, fans are going to be fans, right? But all it would have took is one crate. I mean, like, sure, Freakazoid can probably look after himself, but then again, if some beast from fucking, you know, some swamp somewhere just decides like he wants to crush Freakazoid's little head, you know, what can we do about it? I can't stop him. I'll just have to watch. Film it, maybe put it on YouTube. But you know, I think we're at the stage where we do need to start thinking about actually decent security at events. I never thought I'd say it, but I think we do.
No, I actually agree completely. What's funny is this exact topic just came up recently in Dota 2, because actually just sparking an old conversation, which was earlier in the year, a guy who's a really outspoken guy, he's not the most articulate, intelligent guy, called it Eternal Envy for Cloud9, complained about exactly the same stuff when he was at Starladder, which was actually the Dota 2 finals were held at the tournament that we were at, which was the PGL one. They were held in Romania, in Bucharest, in that big event there. And one of the things he complained about was he thinks, I mean, maybe some of his went a bit too far, but in general, he wanted there to be private bathrooms for players and like a private area to get food and stuff like that, you know. And in terms of bathrooms, that definitely should be the case. First of all, when you hold events in stadiums, they have a bunch of different bathrooms, and they even sometimes have employee-only bathrooms. So that's not even a logistic issue. That could definitely be done. Cordon off one bathroom, and that's only for like casting talent, players, whatever. You could definitely do that. Now, I actually think that that's what should be done, because it's true. I've gone to so many events, especially events like this one was in Atlantic, so I've never been, but I know for old events like C-Bits and stuff, if you went out at the wrong moment through the crowd, you could wait 10 minutes to get across the room that if you just walked with no crowd would take you 1 minute, and then you'd be able to go to the bathroom. So then you'd go to the bathroom, there'd be a massive queue of people, and then if you're a player or anyone known, you're getting people hassling you, asking you for fucking autographs while you're trying to take a piss. Like, there has to be some sort of private area for that sort of thing. Like, fans should be meeting people at the end of matches and at fan meetings. That's where you should be meeting them. I also think separately, from knowing this as a caster, I think there definitely should be like green rooms for players where they can go and no one goes in there except casters and players and tournament organizers. No fan should be allowed in there. Should be a place where you can have sort of a safe mental place where you can just think and sit down there and not have to worry about shit. Because I think as casters, if any fan could just come into our green room while we're chilling out there when we're not casting, it'd fuck with you completely. You need an area where you can just relax and let your mind go from it. You don't want to have people talking to you all the time. That's above and beyond the Call of Duty.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, like, I saw just enough. Like, all the players were super accommodating. I mean, there wasn't one player that said no to a single fan that I saw. You know, and that's a lot of time to give of yourself over to somebody else. For people like me and you, I mean, it's arguably even more of a concern. Because, you know, when we're sat here like, fuck Fox, and then we have to go to a LAN event where you've got some fanatical Fox fan who's just got Fox tattooed on his head or something, like, I had a ton of threats of violence before I went to ESL One Cologne. I had people saying they were gonna meet me there. And obviously, like, I'm tweeting back at them, yeah, well, I'll be there. You know what I mean? So I'm even sort of goading them a little bit, like, but... Yeah, I don't know who's going to turn up. I don't know if they're going to be fucking some little pleb who's like, haha, trolled you, or some guy with a fucking knife who's just going to fucking decapitate me for the good of the internet. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what's going to happen, right? So it'd be nice to just like have a legitimate... Look, the press area was pretty well secure. You had numbers on your press pass, and you could only get in certain areas with certain numbers. But that was sort of really invalidated once they put the pin store down there. Because obviously you've got to let the players queue up to buy the fans queue up to buy the pins. So it sort of made that redundant. And that isn't to be critical of ESL. There was a lot of this tournament ESL did right. I recorded a video about it. I haven't put it out yet. I'm going to. ESL did lots of good stuff this event, actually. But there was still one or two areas where I think it could be tweaked. And I think we're at the stage now where CSGO is such a big sport. We got to offer better protections for the players, you know, like, and it's not even just about protection, like the time management. If you've got 1 hour or whatever it is between a series, do you want to spend that having a meal, decompressing, relaxing, hydrating, or do you want to spend it trying to get a meal and having to sign 50 fucking autographs and pose for 35 fucking selfies, and all of a sudden you don't get any dinner, you know? It's like there's got to be better facilities for players at events. Eternal Envy's right about that. So, anyway, just to do the brief news roundup. I know the point that we'll end on. Thing we were talking about just before. Complexity unveiled a new team. The return of Semphis back to the lineup. What did you make of this? I mean, is this another NA contender, or do you feel this is actually just another placeholder team?
I don't actually know what their lineup is. Where's the team? Where's the lineup?
It's Valens, Sanks, Semphis, Rocker, and Automatic.
Okay, so it's basically Neilum with Rocker. So okay,
yeah.
I do think Rocker's a good player, so that helps. He's a talent. I think he should be on a good team. I think this isn't a bad team. I would probably expect similar of them as before. I mean, I think they'll probably be like the... Let me think. So in their region, we've got Cloud9, Luminosity's there, CLG's there, Liquid's there, and then probably this team. So to me, depending on how Liquid improve, if Hiko joins permanently, they're going to be like the 4th or 5th best team, and it's going to be around that area. I don't think they're going to be close to a top 2 team in NA. I think 4th or 5th is reasonable. So they'll be competing for a spot at the ESL thing, probably.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm glad to see Complexity back. It's just, I know they always seem to take way too long to get the talent that's available when it's available. Like, I don't know, you know, obviously I'm good friends with Jason Lake. I don't know what the management beneath him, obviously Jason Bass is still there as well, but I don't know what the management between them are actually doing, because it seems to be there's this real convoluted process. That Complexity, when there's talent available, you know, like they weren't even talked about during the Hiko and Skadoodle swap at all, you know, and this was an organization that really is synonymous with great Counterstrike. You would think they would maybe take a gamble, put the money where their mouth is, try it out for a season or something, but they never got talked about once, actually, during that sort of, you know, great NA roster shuffle. And now they've got a team that, for me, like you say, I wouldn't put them top 4 in NA. I think they're seriously lacking some firepower in that lineup. And, you know, I see it being another sort of failed experiment and probably a waste of Complexity's time and money. So, again, obviously, I hope they prove me wrong or whatever, but I'm not too sure they will. TSM and Titan get invited to Dubai. So we saw that ESL had obviously gone down the road of not inviting TSM based on their ridiculous seeding system. They hinted they were going to expand the tournament. They did. And now TSM obviously have got the requisite number of points to be in there. And they were indeed invited, along with Titan, which is bizarre, actually. People complained about this. I thought it was quite funny. Maikelele put a tweet out like, we should have been there instead of Titan. But, you know, no, like kind of echoing what TSM had done, which I thought was quite funny. But, and he's got a point, actually. But, of course, it's all done on this ranking system. So just your thoughts about them kind of going back on this decision and all this controversy, including TSM and including Titan.
I mean, it's good in as much as I'd like to see TSM there, so it's a way to solve that problem. It's good as well that you have more teams. I mean, I think it's better to have 8 teams than 6 teams at a CS tournament. I'm not sure the precedent's that great, which is like a sort of riot thing of like, this is what we've done and we believe in it. We all hate it. Oh, in that case, my beliefs have now changed. And actually, I always agreed with you and I have now changed to exactly what you want. Do you love me and can I have more money? Like, that bit's, I'm not sure that's such a great precedent, but okay. In terms of the move, obviously TSM should be there. They're better than some of those teams for sure that they already invited. I mean, fucking Nip was invited as far as I know, right? So let's get real. In terms of Titan, I mean, it's debatable on the Titan one anyway. Once you get that far down the rankings, a lot of teams can replace each other. I think for my money, it probably should have been Mousesports instead of if you just want to get the best teams. But Titan are bigger names. It means you get Shocks there. It means you get the Titan name there. You get a bunch of famous players. You get people from France to watch as well. Yeah, I don't think it's that bad. I think it's all pretty much as it should be in general.
Which brings us to the ranking system. Now, weren't you supposed to be working with ESL to fix this ranking system, don't you?
Yeah, so the update on that is I have talked to the guy and I think it will happen, as in they were talking about like, do you want to consult on this? As in like when we bring out the new ranking system or when we like re-update it, you know, we'll show to you and then you to give us your thoughts. So obviously I said yes to that because I think it's good just even to be able to give them feedback and to potentially cut them off at the pass at some things that might not be such great ideas. I don't think they're going to implement necessarily what I want as a system, so it'll depend how close it is to that. As far as I can tell, almost certainly they're going to use the point system, no matter what. They're not going to use expert opinion, even though that in itself has a logical flaw, which is, well, how do you decide the criteria for the point system? Use an expert. Being there, you just use an expert anyway, mate. So that's a little bit flawed, but okay, I get that. So hopefully they follow what I say, which is I've suggested that if they do a point system, it has to be way more complicated. Like, for example, that whole 3-tier event thing. No, it can't be like that. You have to change the tiers so they don't fuck certain events. And then also you probably need like 7 tiers or something. So there's more variation. And you need to sort of figure out your scenarios in reverse in a way. Like you have to get the system, put events into it and see like, oh, well, this team came second at a major, but now they've got more than this team who won 2 events. Like you have to figure that sort of balance out so it makes sense. So I think it's going to get improved. And that's all I care about is improving it. Like if I don't do anything with them and they just make an even shitter system, that wouldn't be good, obviously. So as far as I can, I'm going to try and help them improve just with some pointers. And hopefully they take some of it on board. And at least we get to a scenario where worst case scenario, okay, they might not get the system I want it, but it's not going to be possible to say, we've invited the top 5 teams, PS, TSM isn't there, haha, NIP is. Like, as long as that sort of scenario doesn't happen, I'll be happier, I think.
What I heard, what I was told while I was at the event, they were talking about your top 10 on air at one point. And I think I think D-Man said something like, there's only one sophisticated ranking system, and that's ESL's.
Jump off a cliff, mate. Jump off a cliff. Maybe that ESL system could like save you and have a pile of them at the bottom. Like, I mean, seriously, fuck me. You're having a laugh, mate. Here's the thing: it's terrible, and you're on an ESL production. Just don't mention it, mate. Just don't bring it up. Just don't even mention it. Don't go the other way and fully like afterwards. Did he turn around, sort of wipe a bit of glaze off his mouth and go, "Where's my bonus? The performance bonus for that?"
The thing is, I gotta be honest. Like, I got told that, so I didn't hear it with my own ears.
I hope it's true.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. If not, like, obviously, then cliff jumping can be put on hold temporarily, or maybe not. I don't know. Speaking of which, how the fuck did Anders pull that face? Have you seen that?
That whole picture's amazing. All 3 of them. The Semler one's pretty good as well. Semler's like doing the whole like jizzed in my pants thing, like. Just like the most fucking Anders though is just God mode, isn't he? That's like he was like that's like a fucking Twitch emote instantly the second you see it. Like that has to be real right now. People need to get that tattooed on their body and come up to Anders like, I'm a really big fan of yours when you did this face here, and look what I've got above it, a little knife. It's like that's from when you were in like a different group. Nah, this is for you. This is for Anders. Look at it. Like, that's the sort of fan that you meet at events.
Mate, it looks like he's having a fucking fatal allergic reaction to a bee sting. I've never seen anything like it in my life. His lips are swollen up. He looks like Brian Peppers, for fuck's sake. How has he done that? How has he done that face? I literally can't even believe it.
He looks like a Rick Baker production.
Every time I look at it, I just laugh, mate. Every time. It's fucking beyond a joke. But anyway, here's something about Anders I wanted to bring up. And again, I haven't had time to speak to Anders about this. I think he's still traveling or something. I know he was at the event with his family, so I didn't even get to see him at the after party or whatever. But apparently, there were wristbands given out which said, "Are you kidding me?" On them. But I don't think they're anything to do with Anders. I don't know who made them. I don't know if Valve made them or ESL made them. but I don't think Anders knows about them. So this could be, is this a copyright thing? Is there going to be some sort of mad legal ramifications? I haven't even had time to write this up.
I mean, I'm shocked that Anders hasn't just brought out a fucking t-shirt line that says, "Are you kidding me?" or something.
Yeah, exactly. Why hasn't he done that? I mean, he can use that fucking face now. Holy shit. Like that'd be worth a fortune. But I don't know if it was ESL, I don't know if it was Valve, I can't confirm yet. I mean, some people in the chat are saying
I'm still on that D-Man thing. What do you mean? So he just suggested that their system's good, basically.
I think he used the word sophisticated.
Well, okay, sophisticated doesn't mean good. Sophisticated just means complicated. Like a level of nuance.
Yeah, can do.
I mean, the way that Pol Pot got rid of like dissidents in his country was pretty sophisticated. He was murdering people, he was rounding them all up and killing them. But it was sophisticated as fuck. So if you think that's good.
But anyway, back to this thing. So all right.
Actually, I apologize for that. I shouldn't have made that analogy because actually ESL's system is more of a ridiculous tragedy against everything good and right in the world than Pol Pot killing all those people. I don't want to conflate the two.
Can we get through an episode of this show without a dictator being brought up? Like, can we just one episode without a dictator that maybe killed a bunch of people? One day. But look, so here's the thing. Have you got a catchphrase, Thorin? Do you have one?
Like, pay me. That's probably the only one I've got, right? That's like
yeah. Okay, well, give me a famous phrase. I know. Okay, the baguette smash that went viral. Right, so let's say you're at an event as talent and you see people throwing stuff out into the crowd or whatever, and it's a T-shirt of you smashing that baguette, right?
Yeah.
Now, and you haven't been consulted or asked about it. How does that make you feel, right? Like, how do you react to that? Because that's your
probably
shit.
Would be like, where's my cup? Where's my cup, motherfucker?
Yeah. So I don't.
This is the thing. Here's the sad thing about Anders. Okay, he's exactly like you see on air, right? He's a really nice guy. He just legitimately loves fucking Counterstrike. He loves watching any shitters play Counterstrike. He'll watch like the worst game in the tournament and actually be enjoying it on some level and be jazzed about it like he is on air. He doesn't have to do any fake hype, right? So he really is like that. Sadly, he doesn't have like a diva type ego. And by the way, the reason why I'm saying, what do you mean sadly? Because almost every other fucking caster who you guys love has a massive diva ego, and some of them are absolutely ridiculous. If you think Richard, okay, when he beats up people on tweets who send mean tweets to him, if you think he's bad, these people are 100 times worse. And they're doing this to people who aren't even talking shit to them, Like, if someone even just does anything slightly off, they lose their shit, some of these esports casters. It's unreal, right? So the reason why I say this is because I wish he was a bit meaner. Like, I wish Anders goes up to the person who made those bans and he's like, I saw the bans you made. Can I have a word with you? He takes him into a little room and he goes like, yeah, about the bans. Listen, I run fucking everything in this town. You don't make a move without my say-so. I want 20% first of the month. Next time the vig goes up, just like goes right in their face. He's just like, you remember War Owl? You remember War Clown? And they're like, yeah, from like years back or something. He's like, yeah, you want to end up like him? I'll fucking have you, son. Like, that's how we
considering he named his kid after fucking Walter White, you would expect him to fucking have a bit more of a mean streak to him. But he is a big teddy bear, like it's not even an exaggeration. He is just like one of the nicest guys.
I think we would get mad about it, Rich, but sadly, I'm pretty sure Anders was just like, good business idea. Well done. Good initiative. Thank you. And this is what Anders would do. Richard, this is how bad Anders is. You'd say, Anders, they've got these like bands saying, are you kidding me on? And I'm pretty sure it's like meant to be about your catchphrase. And they're handing them out. And he'd go up and he'd go, can I talk to you about the bands? And they'd be like, yeah. And he'd go, could I possibly like have one? Wouldn't he? That would be like Anders. Right?
That is actually classic fucking Anders, mate. Oh, dear. But anyway, so look, I haven't had time to speak to him about it. I don't know. But if I were him, I'd be like, look, even if they were given away for free and there's no money, it's still my fucking thing. It's my catchphrase, right? Like, there's got to be some sort of intellectual property there. Like, I don't know. Fuck knows. But anyway, hopefully that gets resolved. Look, I'm not saying it's malicious or anything. It just doesn't seem particularly cool to do it without even mentioning it. Like, I don't know how I'd feel if anyone, like I get fans that send me stuff like, they'll do a picture like, and do you want to use this as a logo? And I go, yeah, that's cool. And that's totally different. This isn't like hey, I took your fucking image and I just gave it. I'm giving it away, and maybe I'm going to sell stuff. You know, obviously you can't just do that. But anyway, final point. We'll come to. Oh, actually, there is kind of two. Do you want to talk about the 4.2 million figure?
Okay.
Worth bringing it up. Did you read about this?
So this is like the total money earned for the whole event with like stickers and everything involved or something?
Yeah. It was basically, it was $4.2 million was given away in the form of prize money, stickers, and signature stickers.
Okay.
Which is a 180% increase overall in the crowdfunding money that was generated at ESL One Katowice, where actually it was a total of $1.5 million through prize money and team stickers. So a huge increase. It's got to be said, though, and this was in an HLTV.org report here, it says, not everyone seemed to be happy with the system in place, as players and fans alike have asked for a bigger portion of the money raised by the community to be channeled towards increasing the prize purse, which after 6 majors remains at $250,000. And Taz was one of the people that talked about this. And he brought up the point, which is absolutely true. Player signatures depend on brand value and popularity. And, I brought that up on the previous show where we looked at, like, some very good players, but their signatures were worth, like, 50 fucking cents. And other people were having, like, $10, $20, So it's still a work in progress. I think the thing that worried me most of all is that this $4.2 million figure sounds really impressive. But until we know how the money's been divided, it's not necessarily that impressive. Obviously, it's 4.2 million, but that's 50%, I think, of all the money earned anyway. So in grand total, it's 8.4, right? And Valve have took 50%. Yeah. So that's the first thing. Then you've got, once that money gets filtered down into the organizations, the sticker money of the logos, that's a sliding scale. Organizations choose how much of that they give to players. Sometimes it's 0, sometimes it's 100. The Valve haven't said, to my knowledge, that there's a set amount. So you can have a situation like iBuyPower, or they had 100%. Obviously, they weren't getting a salary. Or TSM, who I'm told they get 100% of the sticker money. Then you've got obviously the signatures. Now, for player signatures, surely the players have got to be getting 100% of that, right?
It's their
autograph, but apparently not. There are some organizations that are taking a cut of that as well, apparently. So I don't know. I've got some concerns about this number. I think everybody's had to sign NDAs surrounding this figure.
No doubt, I'm sure.
Yeah. So and I don't think people can discuss specific breakdowns. And obviously, organizationally, it's going to remain one big secret. But I definitely think someone's getting stiffed here somewhere. It's. I'm not sure who it is, but I don't know. It seems to be a little bit like they really wanted to push the $4.2 million to the forefront after the international, but like no one's actually looking at what that number means for players in particular and prize money, etc. So, do you have any thoughts, anything to add about that?
I mean, it's a nice number. It also means that there's certain players where just speculating, they're getting paid as fuck. Like anyone who's crying about what happened to Nip, oh, don't worry, get right in those guys. They're going to have made out like absolute fucking mobsters off this event. They came top 8. I'll bet they made more money than fucking Fnatic. Bearing in mind, Fnatic's hated by most fans. I'll bet they made way more money, and they were the 5th to 8th best team. I actually think this is why it's important that more money goes into the prize pool. Because at the end of the day, I'm assuming this is supposed to be a sport or a competition where we're supposed to be rewarding greatness. So the greatest player should be getting lots of prize money, should be getting much more than people who come 58, etc., etc. It shouldn't be the case that this is the WWE and it's all one big show and we're just making a lot of money and then we'll all get it behind the scenes. It's not communism, It's a fucking competition to see who the best is, and to the victor go the spoils. Now, yeah, listen, I don't have a problem with like the signature stuff, and if someone who's a popular player gets money, great, more power to you. I'll get a sponsorship, whatever. All that stuff's great, but the guys who win should be getting taken care of big time.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna try and look into it as best I can. It's gonna be tough, but I'm gonna try and overturn a few stones, make sure.
Richard, I've got an interesting point for you. So think about this. You know the way all these organizers of tournaments and all the people in head positions in esports slap numbers in your face all the time, like a massive dick, as if to show off how big endowed they are, okay? All the time, they're like, look at my viewing figures here. Look at how esports has continued. You know, 2 years ago, I had this many people in my venue. Now I have 4 times more. Now my tickets sold out 10 times faster. Every number that's an advance in their mind, they brag about, and they continually press how important this advance is. Then when they're involved in something like the prize money, suddenly the same organizers like, no, but that has to stay that amount because it's still a really good amount. And, you know, like 5 years ago, that would have been a really great amount if you could have had 250K money. Well, it's weird that, isn't it? Because everything else you were pushing forwards, but on that particular factor, suddenly you're of the opinion that, you know, it's okay because in the past things were worse. Like, that's a bit suspicious to me whenever you start doing that. That tells me, like, you've got some political agenda there. Like, if you're in favor of things going forwards, I don't know anyone who can argue against prize purses going up to 250K. Now, listen, on the other end of it, I could definitely make arguments as to why the prize purse at TI, etc., is ridiculous. I think it might even be too much for where the scene overall is. But this is at the other end of the spectrum. 250K is a long way away from the 6 million. Listen, once we start getting to like 1 million, now we can start talking about, is that enough? Do we stop there? 250K is way too little after 6 majors, after 2 or 3 years, after all these millions that are being made additionally to only have first place be 250K.
Yeah.
That means if eBettle had won the title, they would have made way less money than fucking Cloud9 who went out in the group stage.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely on point, man. Like, it just seems to me like something's got to change. The problem is I don't know what it's going to be, and I don't know when it's going to come. I think Valve are going to announce something, you know, but it just seems a little bit like, you know, 6 majors, man. I mean, that's a long time to go without a bump in the prize money. And we're even at a stage now where, you know, a company like ESL can partner up with ESEA and offer a bigger prize.
That's a question I have as well.
For an online tournament. Yeah.
Do you remember ESL bragging and saying ESL Cologne this year will have 250K before it was announced as a major? And they said, even if it's not a major, we'll put up the 250K. So explain this to me. It became a major. Why didn't they just put 250K their own money in with 250K Valves and have 500K?
I got to be honest. I don't even know if they're allowed to do that. I think literally it's a case of Valve. I mean,
it'd be nice if we knew this then, wouldn't it? Publicly, so we'd know.
But so here's the thing, right? So I know obviously we're critical of ESL. This is one area I don't think I would be. And I'll tell you why. I think this is pretty much Valve's show to run, man. You know? I talked to a lot of players. It was in the Sponge interview. I think it was in the Dupree interview. Valve basically sat down the players. I think they had another meeting at that event. And Valve they were real busy with meeting everybody involved with the tournament and players and managers and other peripheral characters. And they were basically, they explained the reasons for having the format that they do. Now, obviously, again, players don't feel comfortable coming out and explaining the reasons, but apparently it's some mad, convoluted explanation as to why it has to be that format for a major. Now, obviously, we know ESL probably don't want to run that format because it's ESL that gets the criticism, not Valve. But like you've said in the past, hey, you're a partner, you need to be giving feedback.
I don't know pushback.
Yeah, I don't know if they're pushing back or if but I mean, this is Valve. I don't think it will matter if you fucking push back as hard as you could. Valve always do things the Valve way. Vast majority of the time, it's right. Their approach to esports and Counterstrike, it hasn't been perfect. It hasn't been flawless. This is partially, I think, down to the fact they've got a super small team compared to Dota. Like, if you want to know the numbers, based on what I know, it's between 30 and 40 on the Dota team, and I think a grand total of 7 on the CS team.
What a joke.
Internally in Valve. Now, whether they're going to recruit, change that, move people from other departments, you know, I don't know, but they need to. I mean,
to run a fucking McDonald's takes like 20 people, and if you get more McDonald's, you get another chain with 20 people, and you're making hundreds of millions, and you don't have a proper team. How's that an excuse anymore?
Yeah, it is crazy. But equally, look, I don't want to criticize Valve because there's been steps in the road where it looked shit to me, and I was like, look, Valve, you've done a stupid thing here, but actually it turned out to be good long term. When skins and drops and all that first come in, I was like, can we fix the fucking actually, now we've got a huge user base, So this is good, right? You know, now we've got crowd-funded tournaments. This is good. So, you know, I've been critical, gently critical, but critical, because I do love Valve as a company. I think they make amazing games, and I've always said that. But I've been critical of Valve in the past and been wrong. They could see something I couldn't. But at this juncture, I think, you know, we're looking to ESL to be the beacon, but ESL would lose the major status. You lose your ability to sell the pins, which are clearly a huge draw. You lose the ability to have a crowd-funded event. You possibly lose favor with Valve for other future titles. Like, I don't think Valve are that kind of company, but maybe there could be some spillover onto the Dota 2, for example. I have no idea.
But that's the problem. You don't. Here's the thing, Rich. You don't lose those things because you're supposed to be an industry leader. You're supposed to be someone who first and foremost cares about esports and it growing in the right way. And so all these factors, what you do is you don't tell Valve your idea is shit, we're not doing it. What you tell them is, listen, we've got a lot of experience in this area, and here's the concerns that no one in the scene wants right now. Here's fixes we can do, and you're partnered with us because we're one of the best, we're one of the biggest, and so let us do our job. You know, let us delegate some of this to us. Let us have some say in it, and this is how we'll make it better. You know.
Yeah,
everyone in the whole scene collectively can't be scared. Like, well, Valve will take majors away from us. Well, then who are they going to give them to? What? So if DreamHack and ESL say this, suddenly the next major is going to be what? Fucking gaming paradise next year? I don't think so. So like,
yeah,
that's
when
the sort
they
of
expand their
fucking
team. When Valve expand their team, though, they're going to be doing what they're doing in Dota. They're going to be running the show.
Okay.
And they're going to be basically saying, "Hey, for a lot less profit, you can produce it." And that's what's going to happen in Dota. And you know,
well, then if you're ESL, etc., you got to take your beating. You're collecting the check, and you're like, but it's not. I'm not doing this though. The guy who pays all the money does it. Well, you're letting him do it. Oh yeah,
here's what I think is going to happen on a long enough time scale. I think when we get to the future and Valve start running their own events, I think ESL realistically could even become a competitor to those Valve events.
They should.
They'll have to set up their own ESL event with bigger prize fund, bigger prize pool and their own format. And, I think, look, right now, if they were to do that, if they had the kind of stones to do that, they could run a format that players would prefer to the Valve majors. I'm not saying players wouldn't prefer the Valve majors as well, but yeah, exactly. So this is what I mean. It's a weird situation. It really is a strange situation. It's not like the Dota situation at all. We've got a lot of problems that need to be addressed. I mean, this is before we even get into all sorts of other shit. I still think we need a league commissioner or a community manager or someone from Valve who communicates stuff out. I don't like the idea of, hey, we sat down and told the players why the format is this way. Everybody needs to know. I need to know. You need to know. Fans need to know. We all need to know. Why does it have to absolutely be that way when everyone else thinks another way is better? If your argument is solid, present it publicly. That's just got to be, the way it is. So anyway, getting back to the point, I don't necessarily want to criticize ESL. I think when you're ESL and you're almost beholden to games developers, in the power structure, games developers are right up here. They can stop you using any game that they make if they really want to be petty about it and spiteful about it, i.e. Riot Games. I don't think Valve would. But again, it's got to be a consideration. Think about it. It's not just Riot. If your tournament doesn't conform to a certain standard, Blizzard won't give you WCS ranking points for StarCraft. Hey, Rich. To be fair, if your event doesn't conform to certain standards, ESL won't give your event proper tier status. So, just saying. Okay. Yeah, there is that too. But anyway, I sympathise with ESL, the position they're in. And I think when they have a bit of once this MTG acquisition and there is a bit more fleshed out in their esports division, they have a bit more idea about where they're headed. They've brought in a bit more talent. I know they're still looking for hires, and they're still in that weird sort of rivalry with Twitch at the moment, doing that land grab before YouTube get here. I think they're going to have a much better idea of whether or not they can create this perfect tournament. If anyone's going to do it right now, it should be ESL. It's quite sad in a lot of ways that Gfinity has a better format, than the majors do, or DreamHack has a better format than the majors do. We shouldn't really be able to say that. A major should be the perfect way to run a tournament, done with Valve's blessing, Valve's involvement. But right now, it isn't like that at all.
I mean, let's not go too far. DreamHack doesn't have a better format. They actually also have a pretty crap format. They have a better one in terms of they don't have random map selection, but they don't have best of 5 finals.
Yeah,
they have their own issues. They have best of 1 group stage.
They still have their own issues, but I mean,
I'm just saying that because people will think because we work with DreamHack.
Oh, yeah, right.
Just to be fair.
Okay. Yeah, true. Well, yeah, but look, I mean, again, fucking hell. In the past, DreamHack have had games decided on a coin flip in some fucking tournaments. So, yeah, they've definitely had their problems as well, no doubt about it. But I still think the DreamHack format is stronger than the one we've got in a major. You know, random map picks, best of 1.
To me, the random map pick is the biggest tragedy of all of this. Forget everything else. Everything else, I don't agree with other people's opinions on the other ones, but at least I think there is a discussion over should it be best of 5 final, should it be best of 3. You can have a discussion. I've never heard a good point made why in a series there'd be a random third map pick. I've never heard a good point.
Yeah. So just to end on another ESL point, I know you had something to say about this. And keep in mind, you know, the door is still open for us to do majors, Thorin.
I'm sure it is, mate.
It is. It's wide open. I was just there. Mate, it's wide open. It's wide open. You know, it's like, I reckon if you could, for example, dial down your criticism from the perfect 10, which fair enough, you give everyone the perfect 10, Thorin, when it comes to criticising.
Exactly.
I reckon if you could bring it down to a 7, me and you we could be on that stage. Who's Chobra? You know, wouldn't that be nice? We could all get along.
That does, yeah, exactly. Who doesn't like Chobra?
Yeah, mate. I even said that while I was there. I told James Lampkin. I said, I'm never getting a job at ESL, actually, because Chobra's been he's just been way better, like way polished, you know, way more polished. And I told Chobra that at the after party. I was like, you know, you knocked out the park. He's like, yeah, man, the CSGO desks are the most fun I've ever had. It's like, yeah, it's almost if we've all got personalities and shit in Counterstrike. Who knew? But anyway, so I thought he did a great job. This is mentioned again in the video I did. But anyway, maybe I get to be an analyst, Dunk. Maybe they just have me turn up. Maybe I get to do an interview. Who knows? But the point is, the package, it's still there. The package can still happen, mate. The package can still be delivered. With that in mind, you wanted to bring up this point. I think it was one of Carmack's tweets where he said that if the US Counter-Strike audience wants a major in that region, they need to vote with their feet and go to the Intel Extreme Masters San Jose. And if they do that, it'll make the decision easier for them to have the game there and have a major in NA. So I just wondered what your opinion was about that, because I know.
Right, I will preface what I'm about to say by just mentioning I don't even think that's a genuine tweet. I think that's actually quite disingenuous. And in reality, all he's saying there is it's just a tweet like, you know, get your tickets now for IEM San Jose. Like, please come to IEM San Jose. Can everyone come to IEM San Jose? If you like Counter-Strike, come to IEM San Jose. Maybe we'll do a major, you know. He's not really meaning it like there's not going to be a major if you don't go to IEM San Jose. Let's just preface it by saying that that's not really legit. In the same way as when the DJ says, who here loves house music? He isn't really caring whether you love house music, and nor does he think that putting your hands in the air like you just don't care means that you, in fact, do love house music. You might just be drunk in a bar, and he might just want to get a little bit of a cheer going in the crowd. Okay, I'll say that. But with that said, let's examine this on face value, what's being said here. It's just a patently ridiculous statement. And first of all, the idea that everyone in America who wants a major anywhere in their entire fucking giant country has to go to San Jose in California and attend an event that isn't a major to get it. I mean, in a weird way, this is ESL all over again, right? When Counter-Strike Global Offensive has 100,000 viewers, we will put them into the IEM. Okay, how's it going to get 100,000 viewers without huge tournaments? Yep, good point. And how did it ever get 100,000 viewers, Rich? They made a massive tournament. Cart before the horse. You got it the wrong way around there. It doesn't make any sense. So, secondly, there's another key point to make here, which is that I think it's really kind of the cultural context is what's pissing me off about this. Because, first of all, that's not how majors are decided. No one has decided any previous Counter-Strike major on the basis that lots of fans were going to an event there the year before it was a major. So, okay, let's do this for real, Rich. There's a major held in Katowice, Poland, every year. But before it was a major, the year before, they had a they had a League of Legends event there in January, which famously was very well very well thought of. It's the one where Gambit Gaming beat the Korean teams and managed to win in impressive fashion. And apparently the stadium, I think it was also maybe in the same stadium, and it was really packed out and it all looked really awesome. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe at that event, and I think the next year, the first major held in Katowice, the second major overall, but the first one held by ESL, as far as I'm aware, the tickets were free. If you were just from Katowice and you went to the stadium, as long as it wasn't full, you could go in for free. And as a result, the stadium was packed. You saw the pictures. You remember them. This is esports now. Look at this panoramic view. Everyone's there. Now, when you hold events in America, such as IEM San Jose, as far as I know, it costs money. You have to pay for the ticket, even if you're from San Jose, to go to the event. So the problem with this is that's never explicitly stated, and yet this sort of a post is suggesting as if like, what, you want a major in North America? Then prove it by bringing the fans here. Okay, who proved it in Poland that they should have a major? As far as I know, it was free to go and a bunch of people went to the stadium. So is the implication here, as has been implied in the past, by the way, by people from ESL, that the fans in Poland are just the best? They're just the best fans. They're fucking amazing fans. They've got so much passion for esports, yet the tickets were free. How did they show their passion? By people going for free tickets to an event. Okay, cool. Make the events free at San Jose. Let's do the same experiment there. Let's see if it works, right? Because it's not the same playing ground here. And so the idea that North America or America has to earn the status to get a major is ludicrous. Sorry, mate. It's not the case that American fans are somehow inferior to Polish fans, or that Poland's a better esports country than America. You have to show me figures for that. You have to show me studies for that. I'm not just going to accept that off the bat. Now, listen, it's not as serious as that. These are things I've taken as implications from it, but these are sort of built within the conceit of the tweet in a way. That's sort of the implication, even though, like I say, I don't think it's actually legit. But you can see my point I have that generally.
Yeah. But here's the thing as well. What I would add to that point is, ESL do this a lot, right? They sort of put the focus on the community. Like, oh, if you tell us what you want, and if you show us you're genuine that you want it, we'll give it to you. Right? There's no way that a major isn't going to happen in NA. There's no way. Valve want one, for starters. They've said they want more geographic diversity. That's well known in Counterstrike circles. Second of all, you've got the fact that ESL have recently moved staff like Carmack out to fucking LA, and California's becoming this fucking hub of, it's going to be like the new esports mecca, it's going to be like the new Sweden or the new Seoul or something, that's going to be the heart of esports, which I'm not particularly fucking thrilled about, but there you go. You come late to the party, and just because you've got bigger fucking marketing budgets, everyone's out there. Now, by the same token, all these big organizations that are unionizing, team unionizing, not player unionizing, and standing together, most of them are not only just North American, but based in fucking California as well. So come the fuck on. Like, the idea that ESL would never run a major there, even if this event was a fucking washout and no one turned up. That's what they're gearing towards. But the smart play from a PR perspective is, of course, to say, look, we care about the community. If you show us this, we'll give it to you. And, of course, in the short term, the last San Jose, which wasn't a particularly great event for them, the Intel Extreme Masters, just in general, had a few problems and came under fire for some criticism. Obviously, it puts onus on the fans now to attend, thinking that they're going to get some prize. And, of course, it's psychosomatic, they're going to get the prize anyway. But then it's like, hey, I went, I did my bit, we packed out this stadium. So it's like win-win for ESL. And it's like you're dangling a fucking carrot that you're going to have to feed your donkey anyway, or the donkey's going to die. You know what I mean? Like, it's stupid to make out the only way a major's going to happen in NA is if they pack out San Jose. There'll be a major in NA. It'll be an ESL run major in NA in the next 12 months. It's just, that's how it's going to go. It's that's what all the indicators are. So
also, as a final point, remember again how these same organizers can't get their figure's dick out of your face, slapping you across each cheek. This many viewers, this many people in the stadium, this many events. Look at this photo. Esports is huge. We were mentioned on the BBC, ESPN, NBC News. And then they're telling you esports is huge. It's a real sport. People pack out stadiums. Then all of a sudden, they're just like a fucking vaudeville barker trying to get you into their tent. Roll up, said see the bearded man in San Jose. Will Pasha flex his biceps. Come on in. You will not believe what you see in your eyes. The wonders of the earth behold you. Like,
come and see the giant dick.
A minute ago, you were implying you were fucking beating people away from the door who were trying to get in. And like, yeah, we need more staff because people tried to rush the door to get into our fantastic event to taste from the fountain of what we call esports elixir. Like, yeah, okay. Calm down. It has to be one or the other, right? Here's a weird statement for you, Rich, because this is actually, I think, a shrewd point if you actually think about it. Yeah. When you see all these figures, these millions of dollars, they're telling you stats like 1 million people watched us. We have 10,000 people buy out our stadium when we host it. Anyone who was getting the kind of numbers they'd have would be a lot more secure about the way they talk about the industry. I almost wonder, here's the thing, I actually think those figures are real, but just as a point, as a thought experiment, imagine all those numbers were bullshit. Imagine they've exaggerated them. They've maybe lied about them. They've counted in an extra figure to purposely fudge the number. Take every number, prize money, people attending the events, total viewers, number of countries doing, all attention from the press. Take every number and just take a decimal point off. Just take a 0 off. Their behavior is more in line with if you took the 0 off. If it was only 1,000 people were going to the event, if it was only 100,000 people watched, if the prize money was like a few 100,000 and they're still a bit like, oh, I hope it's going to get bigger and is this going to just collapse in on itself? It's not the behavior of people who are in these multi-million-dollar things and it's getting so awesome, it's so huge. It doesn't really add up to me. Now, that might just be they come from a world of scarcity. I don't know, but it is a bit weird, isn't it, that there's not a kind of security that things are great.
I say it all the time. The people that fucking talk the most about growing esports are also the people who are the most insecure in esports success. Like, I have said my entire fucking esports career, the success of esports was guaranteed. I always saw this future. Maybe not for some of the games that made it, and I didn't predict League of Legends being the thing that sort of leapfrogged over StarCraft 2. You know, that's just par for the course. I didn't necessarily think Global Offensive would be here at this point. I thought maybe we were going to have to wait for a Counterstrike 2 on a new engine or something, maybe. But I always knew Counterstrike would be this big, one version or another. The format is too fucking clever. The thrills of watching a Counterstrike game is so fucking visceral. It's so easy to explain the basics and yet so complex on an analytical level. It is the perfect sport, right? In virtual form, and it's team-based, not individual-based, which I think adds this extra component that we all have. So I always knew that we would be sat here talking about millions of people watching esports. I always knew mainstream media were going to be reaching out to people like me. Hey, want to come work on our website? Want to come do an interview? Want to come and talk about esports? Like, yeah. Well, you know, you're the same people who were saying we were all gaming addicts and fucking school shooters and nerds and virgins. So no, fuck you. I'm going to stay right where I am. I always knew we would get to this stage. Yeah, I often wonder about the people that talk about growing the fucking esports pie. It's almost as if they think it will all go away tomorrow. It's like, fuck, what can we do? Oh, 1.3 million people? Well, we need that number to increase next time, or the world's going to end, the world's going to collapse, all of this will end. So please continue to support, like, just ramming it down your throat. Like, haven't people seen the fucking exponential growth of Counterstrike? Like, do you think it's going to stop anytime soon? We're still on an upward trajectory now, for fuck's sake. So it's just in the game's like 3 years old. So there's no reason to think it's going to just die out. Yet I just see nothing but insecurity from all the people that make money from the game. Like, I don't think you need to hammer numbers and send those fucking infographics out, publicly. They're not for fans. I don't think a fan necessarily cares whether, like, X amount of prize money was given out or new peak numbers on Twitch. All they care about is, hey, we like the game, it's growing, the level's getting higher, the prize money, the rewards getting bigger for everybody. I go to events, hell, I got to fight to get a ticket these days. The stadiums are getting bigger. There's talks about organizations buying home fucking stadiums. Virtus.Pro are looking at becoming the first esports team to have a home stadium. Right? That's where we're at right now. There's no need to fucking panic and talk about, oh, please support our game. The fans will support the game normally. It just, I don't know, man. It's like, I guess when you've got so much invested in it, maybe it's natural to be insecure, but I always think that these companies, they do, like you say, they don't act in line with, like, 1 minute they're beating their chest and saying, hey, look, we did it, guys. We took it to the next level. And then the next minute they're saying, but we really need you to support this event. Otherwise, we can't do this thing. And you can't have it both ways. We're either succeeding, which it feels like to me that we are. And I've talked about how in 2 years, corporations will be running this shit. And people like me and you, the amateurs, if you like, the plucky amateurs who aren't clean and aren't polished, will be pushed out. There'll never be jobs for us. Maybe in suits, off camera, acting as consultants, using our knowledge for the corporations. But that's where it's going to go. And that I guess, for moneymakers, that is a success story. So I don't know why people panic, man. Like, I just let it happen. It's like there's going to be, even when CSGO starts dropping off, there'll be another game, and then there'll be another game, and then there'll be another game. And eventually esports will be like not just a fucking little footnote on ESPN. It'll be the main fucking draw. It'll be the main program. In fact, people will be having a say, like, on an esports broadcast, hey, please watch the NBA, because their viewing numbers are fucking below esports numbers, below fucking WWE, like they are currently at the moment. All the indicators are that esports is going to come up big. So I don't get it, dude. I don't get it. But anyway, final points. Just overall, did you enjoy ESL One? Because I know I like, it was really good for me to go there as a fan. I know we joked about it, like getting my passion back. It actually did. It actually happened, which I never thought it. I didn't think it was possible, but it actually did. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the event. I thought it was a great spectacle. I thought the best team won. I thought the best team made the final four, like we just talked about. I thought ESL did loads of stuff right. Like, just to list it quickly, that they were announcing when players were doing player signings over the PA system, so people could come out and do it, and they had it right close to the stadium. I thought the casting desk, the talent desk, was really, really good. Maybe they could have used some casters less and other ones more. I thought all the people they took a risk on, like I mean, they're not risks, but like Chobra and Moses, I thought guys like that came up big. Henry too, who was like super nervous and had to be talked into doing the major in the first place. I thought he did really well. The premium tickets for fans, €220, front row seats, and all the beer you can drink and 3 meals a day for free. So, like, completely free beer, unlimited free beer. So I thought ESL did some really, really good stuff and ran a good event. Oh, and they even brought players over to you if you needed an interview. You know, it was pretty good. It was a pretty good event to attend for the spectators. Don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, it was good. I think every major's good, man. Every major has good games. Luckily, the best thing about Counterstrike is it's almost impossible to run a totally shit tournament. And obviously, I'm not saying ESL did, by the way, but I mean, as in events that go really badly and everything goes bad, there's delays, etc. There'll nearly always, even in the worst event, be one game, one map that's fucking brilliant and is totally awesome, and you still fondly remember that years later, you know. So I think ESL did a fine job, perfectly serviceable. Some aspects they did better in, some they did bad in. Like, I didn't really enjoy like 30-minute dubstep electro concerts with a fucking static image. I'm not a big fan of that, but certain problems. Also, like I say, some Valve-related problems. I wish there was more pushback, no fucking random maps. But there were enough good games that it was a good event. We'll remember it fondly and hope it's better next time. Yeah, well, I'm sure they'll improve. And they can take our feedback. I mean, it'll be hard because that ranking system's so sophisticated, you know. I mean, it's like asking them to go to fucking Alpha Centauri, Rich. You know, they've already been to the moon, so just chill out. It's pretty advanced. Yeah. One step at a time. Anyway, look, as always, thanks a lot for your thoughts, Duncan. Do we have any content from you to look forward to over the next few days? Anything Counter-Strike specific? Yeah, soon. I don't know which day. I'm going to do my Thorin versus Reddit CSGO edition, where I take all your brilliant comments, remove your name, so it's not about you, it's just about what you think, your stupid thoughts that are worthy of just death and abomination, and just treat them derisively like they deserve to be treated, pretty much. So I know you'll all be tuning in for that, all you NIP fans, your S&M, all you Fox fans, you're like, please, more, I hate this, more. Hurt me. Yeah,
The guys on the first day of prison. Oh, wouldn't it be awful if my trousers fell down? Whoops.
Yeah.
Silly me. Anyway. Here's the thing, though. I want to point out that there's a massive difference between the League of Legends community and the CSGO community. League of Legends community, they're having a fucking debate about, is this cyberbullying when Thorin does this, and should we? But they can identify the threads, and what if the people got mad and deleted their accounts and did it, and all of this like discussion about whether or not your video should exist. Counterstrike. Everyone's like, yeah, fucking bring it on. Roast the living shit out of me. Like, they're even putting up deliberately stupid opinions in the thread. Like, please, Thorin, spit in my face. Oh, great one. It's unfucking believable. Like, so yeah, but
ideal.
Ideal, mate. What it just goes to show, like, this is why we like this community so much. Anyway, at times. Anyway, thanks for your thoughts, dude. I'll be putting out an interview with Freakazoid sometime tomorrow. Pretty long interview. He even talks about you in that. I asked him about when you met up. Okay. So there you go. I'm no spoilers. Yeah, no spoilers. But I'll let you retweet that one while it's out. And to obviously everyone who watched the show, all the people that helped make it what it is, thanks very much. Obviously, thanks a lot to Alphadraft. Just so you know, I'll be tweeting out some sign-up links, like referral links or whatever they are. I'm not even going to be like fake about it or whatever. Basically, it's a way of measuring sort of the success and the overall reach of the show. So if you haven't already signed up to Alphadraft and you see myself tweet that out, jump in, create an account, pick some fantasy teams, try and get involved in it. It's basically the Alphadraft's way of gauging how successful the show has been as a podcast. We know you like it. We know you want it to continue. Me and Duncan definitely want it to continue. So hopefully you can support us in that endeavor. And now you can call me a sellout cunt. Anyway, until next Wednesday, we'll see you then. And may all your drafts be alpha. Peace.